Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos. After the main character dies in his previous life, he gets reborn inside of Hazbin Hotel. What is he gonna do inside of Hazbin Hotel? What is he gonna do about Charlie, Lucifer, Adam?
Hazbin Hotel, reborn as a dark Mechanicus tech priest. Chapter 1, Rust and Smoke. The truck came from the left side of the intersection. I saw it at the last second, a blur of red metal and flashing headlights. The horn was loud and short. I remember the sound because it ended faster than I expected. My body turned halfway toward it before the front bumper struck me. There was no pain at first, only a dull, heavy force that crushed everything together. Then I stopped feeling anything. I saw the road against my cheek. It was smooth black asphalt, the color dull under the yellow light. My hand twitched once, then stopped. I could hear people shouting. Someone called for help. Then everything faded. The last thing I saw was the puddle near the sidewalk reflecting the truck's headlights. Then there was nothing. The next moment, there was sound again, but it was different. A low hum filled the air. It was constant and metallic, as if machinery was operating deep underground. My eyes opened slowly. A dark ceiling covered in wires and metal pipes hung above me. Sparks flickered near the edge of my vision. The smell of oil and burned metal mixed with something sulfuric. I sat up. My body felt heavy. I looked down at my hands. They were not skin and bone anymore. Black metal fingers with red joints moved when I told them to. They made a faint clicking sound. My left forearm had cables running into the skin near my elbow. I looked around and saw that the room was dimly lit by dull red bulbs. The walls were made of old steel panels. Steam leaked from broken valves. I was lying on a large metal table. I stood up. My footsteps echoed against the floor, each one sharp and hollow. A dull voice spoke from my right. "You alive?" I turned. The voice came from a tall demon with grey skin, black horns, and small red eyes. He wore a tattered suit with a cigarette hanging from his mouth. He looked annoyed but not surprised. His tone was flat. "Where am I?" I asked. He blew smoke and shrugged. "You're in hell, pal. Don't make it complicated." I looked at him without speaking. He stared back, waiting for some kind of reaction. "You new here or something?" "You look fresh," he said. "I'm Husk. I run the bar in this dump." He turned away, and that was when I saw the rest of the room. It wasn't a laboratory, it was a lobby. Torn wallpaper, an old reception desk, dusty couches, and the faint sound of a piano somewhere deeper inside. The building looked like an old hotel that had been abandoned for years. A soft, cheerful voice came from behind him. "Oh! You're awake." A woman stepped forward. Her hair was long and blonde, her eyes red and bright. She wore a neat red dress and smiled with enthusiasm that didn't match the environment. "I'm Charlie. Welcome to the Hazbin Hotel," she said. "I hope you're feeling okay." I stared at her. Her cheerfulness was unnatural in this place. I could feel the hum of my own machinery beneath my skin, steady and mechanical. I looked around again. "This is hell?" I asked. "Yes," she said quickly. "But it's not as bad as people think. You're safe here. We're trying to make it better." I blinked once, the mechanical lenses in my eyes adjusting automatically. Her words were sincere, but the air around her trembled with the sound of faint laughter coming from deeper inside the building. A tall demon in a red suit stepped out of the shadows near the piano. His grin was wide, eyes glowing white, voice sharp and elegant. My, another new guest," he said. "How fortunate we are today, Charlie. Such unique company." Charlie smiled nervously. This is Alastair. He helps out around the hotel. The tall demon bowed slightly, still smiling. A pleasure, dear stranger. I trust you're settling into your new reality. I looked at him without moving. His energy was powerful, the room reacting faintly to his presence. My internal sensors registered static interference when he spoke. I am adjusting, I said. My voice had a deep mechanical undertone that wasn't there before. Alastair tilted his head. Adjusting, you say? How curious. Not many take it so calmly. I don't see a point in panic, I said. Husk snorted. You'll fit right in. Charlie clasped her hands together. That's great. We can get you a room, and maybe later you can meet the others. What's your name? I hesitated for a second. My memory was fragmented, but one word surfaced, something from before. Ferris, I said. Ferris, Charlie repeated, nodding. That's a strong name. Come with me, I'll show you around. I followed her down the hall. The floorboards creaked under my weight. My steps were steady, each one followed by a faint mechanical rhythm. She spoke as we walked. This place is for redemption, she said. I believe everyone deserves a second chance, even in hell. We're trying to help souls become better so they can move on someday. Her optimism was steady. She meant every word. I nodded but said nothing. My internal systems registered faint traces of demonic energy in the walls, likely from long exposure. The architecture was unstable, yet the building still stood. We stopped near a door. The handle was rusted. She opened it with effort. Inside was a small room with a bed, a dresser, and a window overlooking a dark city filled with red light. The sky was grey and static, glowing faintly. This will be your room, she said. We'll bring you some food later. Rest if you need to. I nodded. Thank you. She smiled brightly and left, humming softly as she went. I closed the door and turned toward the window. The city outside was endless towers of rusted steel, smoke rising from the streets, fires burning in distant alleys. Flying creatures moved across the skyline. My sensors adjusted to the light levels automatically. I sat on the edge of the bed. The springs groaned under my weight. My body was not human anymore, but it felt stable. I checked my internal systems: power core stable, temperature normal, movement actuators functioning. Someone knocked on the door. Yet, I said. The door opened slightly. Husk leaned in. Charlie says dinner's ready. You eat. I don't need food, I said. He shrugged. Suit yourself. Just don't scare the others. I won't. He left without further comment. I stood up and looked at the mirror above the dresser. My reflection showed a man-shaped figure of dark metal and faint red light. My eyes glowed dimly. The faceplate was human-shaped but with mechanical lines across the jaw and temples. I studied it for a long time. Then I went downstairs. The dining area was loud. Angel Dust sat near the table, laughing at something Vaggie said in irritation. Nifty moved quickly, cleaning up crumbs with energy that never slowed. Husk was behind the counter. Charlie sat near Alastair, smiling as they spoke quietly. When I entered, Angel Dust looked up. Whoa, Metal Man's here. You some kinda robot freak? Something like that, I said. He grinned. Kinky. You got any guns built in? Not anymore. He laughed again. Vaggie rolled her eyes. Don't encourage him, she said to me. I'm not, I said plainly. She frowned but said nothing else. Charlie looked over and waved. Ferris. Come sit. You can still join us, even if you don't eat. I sat down across from them. The chair creaked. The table smelled of old wood and alcohol. Husk poured drinks while Angel Dust teased him about it. Alastair kept smiling, watching everyone closely. Charlie started asking questions. So, where are you from, Ferris? I don't remember much, I said. Only that I worked with machines. That explains the look, Angel Dust said with a grin. Charlie ignored him. Well, I'm glad you're here. Maybe you can help us fix some of the hotel systems. The wiring's a mess. I can repair it, I said. Her eyes lit up. Really? That would be amazing. The elevator's been acting up for weeks. I'll inspect it tomorrow, I said. Alastair leaned forward slightly, his grin steady. You're quite efficient, my friend. I like that. I nodded once. Efficiency keeps things functioning. He chuckled softly. Indeed it does. Dinner continued for a while. I stayed quiet, listening to their conversations. Each of them acted according to their nature. Angel Dust joked constantly, Vaggie scolded him, Charlie kept trying to keep the peace, and Alastair occasionally added comments that made the air tense. When it was over, I went back upstairs. The hallway was empty. My sensors detected faint whispers through the walls, residual sound from distant rooms. I entered my room and sat by the window again. The red glow from the city made the shadows long. I checked my mechanical systems again. Power levels steady. Internal data intact. No damage. I adjusted the wires near my neck and leaned back. Hell was noisy even at night. Distant gunfire echoed through the streets. I could hear laughter somewhere below, loud and sharp. I watched the skyline until the red clouds dimmed slightly. There was a quiet knock on the door. Come in, I said. The door opened and Charlie stepped in. She smiled gently. I just wanted to check in. You're settling okay? Yes, I said. I know it's a lot to take in, she said softly. Most people don't adjust this fast. I adapt quickly, I said. She nodded. Good. I hope you'll feel comfortable here. We really need more people who can help maintain the place. I'll start in the morning, I said. She smiled again and left. When she was gone, I sat there in silence. My body made faint mechanical noises as I moved. I watched the city until the sound of distant thunder rolled across the sky. The lights outside flickered once, then steadied. I stood up, opened the panel on my left arm, and checked the internal components. The design was unfamiliar but efficient. Energy cells connected directly to the spinal frame. The power distribution was perfect. Whoever built this body knew precision. I flexed my fingers again and closed the panel. The room was silent except for the faint hum of my systems. Tomorrow I would begin work on the elevator. That would be my first task. The structure was old, likely unstable. Repairing it would require basic tools. I had no tools, but I could build them. I checked the floor beneath the dresser. Dust, rust, and a few scattered nails. Enough for small projects. The night passed slowly. I stayed awake, not needing sleep. My thoughts remained clear. I watched the mechanical city of hell through the window and listened to the faint, constant sound of distant engines. By morning, the red sky brightened slightly. I went downstairs. Charlie was already awake, talking to Vaggie about plans for the day. Husk sat at the bar with a glass already half empty. Angel Dust yawned on the couch. Alastair stood near the piano, humming a quiet tune. Charlie looked up when she saw me. Good morning, Ferris. Ready to work? Yes, I said. She smiled. Perfect. The elevator's down the hall, near the back. I followed her there. The elevator door was dented. The buttons didn't light up. I pried the panel open and examined the wiring. The insulation was melted in several places. The main control circuit was corroded. "It's in poor condition," I said. Charlie nodded. "Yeah, it breaks a lot. I'll need to reroute power and rebuild the main relay," I said. She looked confused. "Okay, just do what you need to do." I started working. My fingers moved quickly, pulling wires apart, connecting them again, stripping insulation with precision. The others watched from a distance. Angel Dust whistled. "He's fast." Vaggie crossed her arms. "At least someone's useful around here." Charlie frowned at her. "Hey, everyone's useful." Alastair chuckled softly. "Productivity is such a rare virtue here. It's almost refreshing." I ignored them and continued. After 20 minutes, the elevator lights flickered on. The door opened smoothly. Charlie clapped her hands. "It works." I stepped back. "The system's stable. Avoid overloading it with too many passengers." She grinned. "You're amazing, Ferris." "Thank you." I nodded once. "You're welcome." Husk muttered something about saving the building money. Angel Dust laughed again. The rest of the day passed in quiet work. I repaired loose panels, fixed leaking pipes, and reinforced sections of the wall. By evening, the hotel was quieter. The others went about their routines. When I finally returned to my room, the light outside had dimmed again. I sat by the window once more. The hum of the city filled the air. My body felt steady. My systems were efficient. Tomorrow, I would continue. Chapter 2, Steel and Servitude. The morning cycle in hell did not bring calm or light. It was a steady red haze across the sky that never changed in warmth or depth. I had been awake since before the others stirred. The sound of the city outside was constant: machines running, horns echoing, faint shouts fading into distance. I stood by the window and adjusted the metal cable that linked my left arm to the power coupler in my back. It clicked into place with a short hiss. The repairs from yesterday had held through the night. My inspection of the elevator's system showed steady current distribution and stable magnetic locks. I felt satisfied. Work provided order. Downstairs, I could already hear Charlie's voice echoing faintly. She was talking with Vaggie near the lobby about plans for the day. I turned and left the room. The hallway was quiet, the floorboards shifting slightly under my weight. When I stepped into the main lobby, Charlie's head turned toward me immediately. Her energy was high despite the hour. "Ferris." "Good morning," she said brightly. "The elevator still works." "That's so great. Thank you again." Her smile was wide. She was holding a clipboard filled with notes written in uneven handwriting. Vaggie stood beside her with arms crossed, looking over the papers with mild irritation. "I confirmed its stability," I said. Vaggie looked up. "Good. Maybe now it'll stop breaking every week." Charlie nodded eagerly. "Since that went so well, I was wondering if you could help with a few more things today. We've got wiring problems in the West Wing, the plumbing's a mess in the basement, and Husk says the generator keeps shorting out." "I'll inspect them all," I said. She smiled with relief. "Perfect. Oh, and please don't mind Angel if he bothers you. He likes to talk." "I have noticed," I said. Vaggie gave a short sigh. "Good luck. You'll need it." I turned and walked toward the West Wing. The walls here were more damaged than the lobby: peeling paint, cracked plaster, broken light fixtures. My sensors detected uneven power flow along the corridor. Several lines carried no current at all. I knelt by the first junction box, opened it, and began reconfiguring the wiring. The wires were thin and corroded. I removed the damaged section, twisted the new connections together, and resealed the housing. The light above me flickered, then stayed on. Angel Dust appeared around the corner. He had a cigarette in his mouth and wore his usual grin. "Hey, big metal guy. Charlie got you doing all the dirty work now, hey?" I looked up at him. "Maintenance is necessary." He smirked. Sure. You don't talk much, do you?" "I talk when needed." He leaned against the wall, exhaling smoke. "You ever, relax? You look like you're about to build a tank or something. "I work efficiently," I said. He laughed. "Man, you're a tough nut. All right, I'll leave you to it. Don't short yourself out." He walked off, still laughing to himself. I watched him leave, then turned back to the wiring. By midday, I had restored full current flow to 3 hallways and 2 side rooms. I moved on to the plumbing next. The basement smelled of mildew and rust. The pipes were leaking near the joint connections. I tightened the valves and replaced a section using a piece of spare tubing I found behind an old boiler. Charlie appeared at the stairs, holding her clipboard again. "How's it going down here?" she asked cheerfully. "Stable," I said. "The main valve needed realignment." She crouched near the pipe and looked at it with visible interest. "You did all this so fast. It used to flood down here every time it rained outside." "I rerouted the drainage," I said. She nodded with genuine gratitude. "Thank you. This place means everything to me. It's nice having someone who can fix things." I didn't answer immediately. She waited, watching me closely. "I maintain what exists," I said finally. "That's still important," she replied quietly. "Vaggy's been trying to patch things for months, but it's hard to keep up. You're helping a lot." Her sincerity was clear. I gave a short nod. "I will continue until the systems are functional," I said. She smiled again, stood up, and brushed dust off her skirt. "I'll tell the others not to mess with anything while you're working." She turned to leave. As she did, I said, "Charlie." She looked back, surprised that I spoke her name. "Your leadership is efficient," I said simply. Her expression softened. "Thank you, Ferris." She left with a faint smile. I returned to work. By late afternoon, the mechanical systems of the west wing and basement were stable. I moved next to the generator room. The hum inside was uneven. The generator was an old model, half mechanical, half infernal energy core. Sparks shot from the coupling where the conduit met the housing. Husk stood near it, holding a half-empty bottle of liquor. "Careful," he said dryly. "Things been sparkin' all day. Nearly took my eyebrows off earlier." "It's overloaded," I said. "Yeah, no kidding," he muttered. I examined the housing, adjusted the energy regulator, and disconnected the faulty grounding wire. Husk leaned against the wall and watched. "You know your way around this stuff," he said. "I understand machinery," I said. He took a drink. "Good. Maybe now we won't blow up." He paused, studying me for a moment. "You don't get tired?" "No," I said. He grunted. "Lucky bastard." I continued to work. After a few adjustments, the hum of the generator became steady. The lights above us brightened. Husk looked up, satisfied. "Finally. Guess I owe you one," he said. "No debt is required," I replied. He shrugged. "Whatever you say, Tin Man." He walked off, leaving the smell of alcohol in the air. When I finished calibrating the generator's output, I noted that the entire building's energy system now operated within stable limits. The circuits were functional, and the risk of overload minimal. I walked back to the lobby. Charlie was there with Vaggie, Angel Dust, and Alastair. They were discussing plans for upcoming guests. When they saw me approach, Charlie brightened immediately. "Ferris. You're done already?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "The electrical and mechanical systems are stable." She smiled with clear relief. "That's amazing. Thank you so much." Vaggie looked at me with cautious approval. "Good work. Maybe now the lights won't flicker every 5 minutes." Angel Dust grinned. "You fix the showers too?" "Because the water pressure in mine sucks." I adjusted the main valve. "Pressure should be even now," I said. He laughed. "Well, look at that. Mr. Metal fixed my morning routine." Alastair's eyes glowed faintly as he leaned forward slightly. "How fascinating, my dear Ferris. You've managed to bring a bit of order to this delightful chaos." "Order prevents failure," I said. He smiled wider. "Ah, but some failure is so entertaining." Vaggie frowned. "Don't start, Alastair." He chuckled and stepped back, raising his hands slightly. "Just making an observation, my dear." Charlie clapped her hands together. "Everyone, let's be nice. Ferris did an amazing job today." The room quieted. Angel Dust flicked ash into a tray. Husk poured another drink. Charlie looked proud. I stood still, hands clasped behind my back. "All systems will need weekly checks," I said. "I will perform them." Charlie nodded. "That's fine. I'll make a schedule." "Good," I said. The conversation shifted to other matters. Charlie discussed plans to recruit more residents. Vaggie voiced concerns about safety. Alastair listened with amusement. Angel Dust made jokes that annoyed Vaggie. Husk ignored everyone and drank quietly. I observed them all while running quiet diagnostic cycles through my systems. Every personality was distinct, consistent, and predictable. Their interactions formed a rhythm. That rhythm kept the building alive. After a while, Charlie looked at me again. "You don't talk much about yourself," she said softly. "I prefer to work," I said. "I get that," she replied. "Still, if you ever want to talk, I'm around." "I will keep that in mind," I said. She smiled again, genuine and open. "Okay." Evening came. The group began to disperse. Angel Dust went to his room humming a tune. Husk stayed by the bar. Vaggie and Charlie went upstairs to check guest rooms. Alastair remained near the piano, playing quiet notes that echoed through the hall. I stood near the wall, watching the lights flicker slightly as the generator settled into its night cycle. The sound was steady. I felt the vibration through the floor. After a while, Alastair looked over his shoulder. "A quiet night for a change, isn't it?" "It is stable," I said. He laughed softly. "You really do like that word, don't you?" "It is the proper term," I said. He smiled without reply and returned to the piano. I left the lobby and returned to the west wing. The lights stayed consistent now, each bulb glowing with even intensity. The walls no longer crackled with loose current. I checked the junction boxes again, confirming their stability. Charlie found me there about an hour later. She had changed into more casual clothes but still looked alert. "Still working?" she asked. "Inspection," I said. She stepped closer, watching the steady glow of the bulbs. "It looks great. You've really changed the feel of this place." "Function creates comfort," I said. She smiled softly. "You really believe in that, huh?" "Yes." She nodded slowly. "You remind me of my dad in some ways. He likes things orderly too." I did not respond to that. She realized the comparison and laughed awkwardly. I mean, not like that. Just, you're calm. Focused. I understand, I said. She exhaled and looked around. Anyway, I should let you rest. Thanks again, Ferris. This means a lot. I will continue repairs tomorrow, I said. Okay. Sleep well if you sleep, she said with a small grin. She walked away. I turned back to the wiring. My mechanical components emitted a low hum as they cooled. The hallway felt clean, precise, and silent. Hours passed in measured rhythm. I moved from one corridor to another, tightening bolts, replacing rusted panels, checking every outlet and line. Each system that worked correctly gave me quiet satisfaction. By the time the ambient glow of the city began to shift again, the entire West Wing was secure. I recorded all changes on a notepad Charlie had given me. When I went back downstairs, the lobby was empty except for Husk, who was half asleep at the bar. He opened one eye when I approached. Still goin', hey, he said groggily. Yes, I said. You never stop, he muttered. You're something else. Maintenance requires consistency, I said. He grunted in reply and went back to his drink. I returned to my room. The sound of the city had quieted slightly. I stood near the window again, watching faint red smoke rise above the skyline. My reflection in the glass looked unchanged: metal, steady, efficient. The hotel's systems were stable. The building would hold. That was enough. Chapter 3, Iron and Vigilance. The dawn cycle in Hell was identical to every other. The sky remained dull red, its light weak and constant. The air outside the window shimmered faintly with heat and smoke. I had already completed my morning maintenance checks before the others were awake. Every section of the hotel's energy network maintained consistent output. The systems hummed at optimal rhythm. When I went downstairs, I found Vaggie in the lobby. She was standing near the front doors, her arms crossed, scanning the street through the cracked glass. Charlie sat nearby, adjusting a stack of papers, still half asleep. Angel Dust was slouched on the couch, legs crossed, humming while flipping through a magazine. Vaggie noticed me immediately. "Morning, Ferris," she said. Her tone was controlled, but her posture was tense. I nodded once. "Good morning." She pointed toward the doors. "We've had people snooping around the hotel again. Some of them from the streets. I want to reinforce the perimeter before they get any ideas." Charlie looked up from her papers. "They weren't that close, Vaggie. It might have just been passers-by." Vaggie shook her head. "It's hell, Charlie. People don't just pass by without a reason." Charlie sighed quietly but didn't argue further. I stepped closer to the door and examined the frame. The hinges were rusted. The lock mechanism was corroded, the metal thin from years of neglect. The structure around the doorway was cracked. "These doors will not resist intrusion," I said. Vaggie turned to me. "Yeah, I know. Can you fix them?" "Yes," I said. "Reinforcement and new locking systems will be required. The perimeter walls must also be stabilized. I will begin with the doors." Charlie smiled faintly, relieved. "Thank you, Ferris. I'll help however I can." "I only require materials," I said. Vaggie pointed toward the storage room near the back. "There's scrap metal and some old tools in there. Take what you need." I went there immediately. The storage area smelled of rust and dust. Old furniture, bent pipes, broken machines, and leftover construction material filled the room. I sorted through it all, selecting what could be melted down or refitted. My mechanical fingers worked steadily, lifting, cutting, measuring. After an hour, I had collected several metal plates, 2 working welding torches, and a handful of bolts that could still bear weight. I set them near the entrance. When I started welding reinforcement plates onto the door frame, sparks scattered across the floor. The sound was sharp but consistent. Charlie stood behind me, watching curiously. "That looks strong," she said. "It will hold," I said. Her eyes followed the precise movement of my hands. "You work like it's second nature." "It is," I said. She smiled slightly. "That's good. We need people like you here." Vaggie returned after checking the outside perimeter. "Once you're done here, we'll look at the walls. They're falling apart in the back alley." "I will inspect them," I said. It took 2 hours to finish the front doors. The surface gleamed dull silver where the welds sealed into the metal. I tested the new locking mechanism: smooth, firm, resistant. When I turned to Vaggie, she nodded approvingly. "That's solid. Should slow anyone down if they try to force their way in." "Slowing is not sufficient," I said. "A defensive perimeter must include deterrence." She frowned slightly. "You mean weapons?" "Yes," I said. "Mechanical barriers, pressure locks, trip alarms." She sighed quietly. "We can't make it look like a fortress. Charlie doesn't want to scare people away." Charlie looked up from her papers again, hearing her name. "What?" "Ferris wants to make the place more secure," Vaggie said. "I told him we can't make it look threatening." Charlie smiled awkwardly. "We can find a balance. It just needs to feel safe, not dangerous." "I will conceal the systems," I said. "Hidden mechanisms can maintain appearance while providing function." Vaggie nodded slowly. "That works. All right, I'll show you the outer wall." We went outside together. The city air was heavy, thick with smoke and the smell of burning oil. The hotel's exterior walls were cracked. Some parts were missing entirely, replaced with mismatched panels and bricks. Garbage and broken glass lined the alleyway. "This side's the worst," Vaggie said. "We've had people throw stuff through the windows. Sometimes they just mess with us for fun." "Unacceptable," I said. She crossed her arms. "Yeah, well, that's hell. You'll get used to it." I crouched and examined the base of the wall. Structural weakness begins here. The foundation has shifted. The support beams have corroded. Repair will require reinforcement at multiple points. "Can we do that with what we have?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I can repurpose scrap from the basement." She exhaled. "Good. I'll help carry what you need." We went back inside. I gathered several metal rods, plates, and panels from the storage room. Vaggie helped carry them outside, her movements quick but silent. She didn't complain. While I welded the first set of panels into place, she watched the street carefully. Her spear leaned against the wall near her. Her eyes moved from shadow to shadow, scanning for movement. "You're always alert," I said. She glanced at me. "Someone has to be." "You don't trust the city," I said. "I've lived here long enough to know better," she replied flatly. I kept working. The sound of metal meeting metal filled the alley. After a few minutes, she spoke again. "You don't talk much," she said. "I speak when necessary," I said. "That part's obvious." She smiled faintly. "Still, you're not bad company." I didn't respond. I continued aligning the panels, securing them into the concrete. After several hours, we had reinforced the entire lower section of the wall. The structure was firm. I tested each point of contact by striking it once with my hand. The sound was solid. Vaggie wiped dust from her face and exhaled. "That should hold. Nice work." It is sufficient, I said. She leaned her back against the wall, looking tired but satisfied. Charlie's going to be happy about this. Her satisfaction maintains order, I said. She gave a short laugh. You really like that word, huh? Order. Order ensures survival, I said. Guess I can't argue with that, she replied. We stayed silent for a few moments, listening to the noise of the street. Distant engines roared, and the faint echo of shouting came from somewhere nearby. She picked up her spear and checked the edges. We should probably add something to the windows too. People keep throwing rocks. I will install protective screens, I said. Reinforced but not visible. Perfect, she said. Let me grab tools. She went inside and came back with a box of nails and a hammer. Together, we started on the windows. I shaped the metal mesh using the torch, then attached it carefully inside the frame so it couldn't be seen from the street. While we worked, Charlie came outside, holding a tray of drinks. You two have been at this all day, she said happily. Take a break. Vaggie took one of the glasses and drank. Thanks, babe. I looked at the tray, then shook my head. I do not require sustenance. Charlie smiled awkwardly. Right. Forgot. She looked around at the reinforced wall and door. Her eyes widened slightly. This looks incredible. You really made a difference. Functionality restored, I said. She looked impressed. You've made the place feel safer already. Thank you, Ferris. Her tone was warm and sincere. I inclined my head slightly. It will remain stable. Vaggie smiled faintly. You're not bad to have around. I turned back to the final window. That will be sufficient for now. Further reinforcement can wait until tomorrow. Charlie nodded. All right. Just don't work yourself too hard. I do not fatigue, I said. She laughed softly. Still, take a moment to rest. She went back inside with Vaggie following behind her. I stayed outside a moment longer, testing the structure one more time. Every weld was clean, every joint sealed. The wall would hold. When I returned to the lobby, Alastair was standing near the radio equipment, his grin steady as always. He turned his head slightly toward me as I entered. My, he said with a cheerful tone. You've been quite busy today. The place looks positively fortified. Protection is necessary, I said. He chuckled softly. Practical and precise. I do enjoy efficiency. Husk was sitting at the bar, half asleep. Long as he keeps the roof from falling on my head, I don't care what he does. Angel Dust smirked from the couch. Metal Boy's got us living in style now. Maybe he can fix my window next time. I will, I said. Charlie clapped her hands together. Everyone, let's appreciate Ferris for all the work he's done. The hotel's starting to look better every day. Angel Dust raised his glass lazily. Cheers, big guy. Husk lifted his drink in silence. Alastair bowed slightly, still grinning. Vaggie gave me a short nod of acknowledgement. Charlie smiled proudly. I remained still. Repairs continue tomorrow, I said. Don't forget to rest, Charlie reminded again. I will resume at optimal time, I said. She smiled again. All right. The rest of the night passed with quiet conversation among the others. Angel Dust joked, Husk mumbled, Charlie planned improvements, and Vaggie stayed focused. I stayed near the corner, silently observing the rhythm of their interactions. When the lobby finally quieted, I went outside again to inspect the structure under night conditions. The street lights flickered weakly. The air smelled of burnt metal. The reinforced walls stood strong, the doors secure. I walked the full perimeter once, verifying each segment. Everything held steady. Returning inside, I noted the temperature and electrical output from the generator both stable. Charlie passed me in the hallway. She was yawning, holding her clipboard loosely. "You're still up?" "Yes," I said. She smiled faintly. "You really never stop, do you?" "I will continue until completion," I said. "Well," she said softly, "thank you. I mean it." She walked away, heading to her room. I stayed there for a while longer, listening to the faint sound of machinery and the quiet hum of hell outside the window. Chapter 4, Circuits of Purpose. The red haze outside had not changed since yesterday. Hell's light never softened or brightened, it remained a constant pulse through the glass of the hotel's windows. I had been awake for several hours, conducting internal checks of the newly reinforced walls. Every weld remained sealed, and the generator output remained stable. The hotel was quieter now. The vibrations of loose metal and leaking pipes had been replaced by calm resonance. Downstairs, the faint sound of Charlie's voice echoed from the lobby. I followed it. She stood near the main reception counter with a broom in one hand and a clipboard in the other. Her energy had not lessened even after days of strain. She was explaining something to Vaggie, who listened with visible patience. "If we can fix up the East Hall, we can finally start opening those rooms again," Charlie said, smiling brightly. "It'll be one step closer to making this place welcoming." Vaggie sighed, adjusting her hair. "We can't open anything until it's safe. Half the wiring there's fried. I don't want anyone getting electrocuted." I stepped closer. Charlie looked up immediately. "Ferris. Perfect timing." I stopped beside the counter. "Report," I said evenly. She pointed toward the eastern corridor. "We want to start restoring the inside of the hotel now that the outside's safer. Can you take a look at the old guest rooms? The lights haven't worked in years." "Yes," I said. "I will assess electrical stability and mechanical condition." Charlie grinned. "You always know exactly what to say." "Thank you." Vaggie crossed her arms. "I'll come with you. That wing's a mess." "Understood," I said. We walked together down the hallway leading to the east wing. The air grew heavier with dust as we went. The floor creaked with every step. The wallpaper had peeled away completely, revealing cracked plaster and exposed wiring. I reached out, pressing my hand against the nearest panel. The metal beneath vibrated faintly from residual energy leakage. "Power still flows here," I said. Vaggie frowned. "How?" "We shut this section off a long time ago." "Residual current?" "Uncontrolled. Risk of overload," I said. "Guess we're lucky it hasn't burned down," she muttered. I moved to the first junction box, opened it carefully, and examined the interior. The copper wiring was melted and fused together in several places. I began cutting and removing the damaged sections. My tools clicked rhythmically as I worked. Vaggie watched in silence for several minutes before speaking again. "You don't stop, do you?" she said. "Efficiency prevents decay," I said. She smirked faintly. "You and your efficiency. I guess I can't complain." I replaced the wires, sealed the casing, and tested the current. The lights above us flickered once, then stabilized. The corridor brightened. "Better already," Vaggie said. I continued down the hallway, repeating the process at each panel. Some were beyond repair and required complete replacement. I stripped metal from unused fittings nearby and shaped new casings for them. The heat from the welding torch filled the air with a sharp tang. Vaggie kept lookout while I worked. Occasionally she cleaned broken glass or shifted debris aside. Her movements were controlled and alert. After 2 hours, most of the lighting had returned. The corridor now glowed a consistent orange hue. Charlie appeared then, smiling brightly when she saw the lights. "Oh wow! It's actually working," she said with visible excitement. "All circuits restored," I said. She clapped her hands together. "You've done so much already." "Thank you, Ferris." "Gratitude unnecessary," I said. Vaggie laughed softly. "You're gonna have to get used to people saying thank you, Metal Man." Charlie pointed down the hallway. "There's still that storage room near the end. The door's stuck. Can you check that too?" "Yes," I said. The door she mentioned was heavy and partially jammed. The hinges had rusted, and the frame had warped. I wedged my fingers between the panels and forced them apart. The mechanism cracked open with a sharp metallic sound. Dust poured out as the door shifted. Inside was a large room filled with old furniture, broken lamps, and scattered papers. I stepped inside and scanned the structure. Several electrical conduits ran along the ceiling, still intact but inactive. Charlie followed behind me cautiously. "Wow, this place hasn't been touched in forever," she said softly. Vaggie wrinkled her nose. "It smells like old mold." I knelt and checked the power relay box near the floor. The main switch had corroded in the off position. I disassembled it, cleaned the contacts, and reconnected the lines. When I flipped the switch, a low hum filled the room. The overhead lights blinked on. Dust particles drifted through the air, visible in the glow. Charlie's eyes widened. "This used to be a guest recreation room," she said quietly. "I didn't think we'd ever get it working again." "It requires cleaning," I said. "I'll handle that," she replied with determination. "You've done enough heavy lifting for today." I stood up. "I will inspect the remainder of the east wing." Vaggie looked relieved. "If you can fix the wiring in the rooms, we might actually be able to open this section again." I moved systematically through the rooms. Each had its own set of problems: burnt sockets, jammed locks, cracked panels. I worked without pause. Charlie and Vaggie assisted by removing debris and sweeping dust. By mid-afternoon, the east wing glowed steadily, the lights bright and warm. The power readings remained consistent across all circuits. Charlie leaned against the doorway, wiping sweat from her forehead. "I can't believe this part of the hotel is finally working again," she said happily. Vaggie nodded, looking around. "You really did good work, Ferris." "The systems operate within proper tolerances," I said. Vaggie smiled faintly. "You could just say thanks." "Thanks are inefficient," I said. She laughed quietly. "You're something else." Charlie set her clipboard down on a nearby table. "All right, next we should check the main dining area. Half the appliances there don't even turn on anymore." I followed her downstairs. The kitchen and dining space were old. The counters were covered in dust, and the smell of burnt oil lingered in the air. Old ovens, stoves, and refrigerators lined the walls, all non-functional. Husk stood near the counter, pouring himself another drink. He glanced up when we entered. "Oh, great! The machine guy's here. Maybe he can fix the fridge so my beer stays cold." "I will restore all appliances," I said. He shrugged. "Do what you want. Just don't blow the place up." Charlie looked around the room. "If we can get these running again, we can start serving real meals instead of whatever Husk calls food." Husk rolled his eyes. "You're welcome for the effort, Princess." Vaggie sighed. "Let's just get this over with." I approached the first refrigerator. Its compressor was rusted solid. I pried the back panel open and examined the wiring. The insulation had melted away in several places. I replaced the damaged sections with spare cable and cleaned the compressor blades. When I reconnected the circuit, the machine hummed back to life. Charlie clapped her hands. You did it. Function restored, I said. She grinned. That's one down. I moved to the stove next. The gas lines were clogged. I removed the covers, cleared the residue, and repaired the ignition system. Each click of the lighter sparked clean blue flames across the burners. Vaggie raised an eyebrow. That's impressive. Charlie laughed lightly. Now we just need someone who can actually cook. Angel Dust walked in at that moment, holding a plate of something unidentifiable. Did someone say cook? Because I've been told my cuisine's to die for. Vaggie glared at him. No one said that. He shrugged, smiling. You're just jealous of my talent. Husk muttered from the bar. Your cooking would kill a roach. Charlie sighed with a small smile. Let's not start. I continued to work. The sink needed new piping, the dishwasher's motor was jammed. Each issue required time, but by evening everything operated properly. The steady hum of working machines filled the kitchen again. Charlie looked genuinely moved. This feels different, she said quietly. Like the hotel's alive again. Vaggie nodded. It's a good start. Angel Dust flicked his cigarette. Guess we owe Metal Man here a thank you dinner. I do not eat, I said. Then drinks, he said with a grin. I do not drink, I said. Wow, you're a real party, he replied. Husk chuckled quietly. He's fine by me. Keeps the lights on. Charlie smiled. Ferris, you've done more for this place than anyone could have hoped for. Thank you. I inclined my head slightly. The structure functions as intended. She laughed softly. That's your way of saying you're happy with it, isn't it? I am satisfied, I said. That's close enough, she replied warmly. The group began to disperse. Angel Dust wandered off toward his room, Husk stayed at the bar, and Charlie and Vaggie remained a moment longer to go over notes. I took the opportunity to check the central control panels one final time. Every reading showed stable operation. When I turned back, Charlie was smiling at me again. We're really making progress, she said quietly. Thank you for believing in this project. Belief is unnecessary, I said. Function requires effort. She looked at me with a soft expression. You always sound so serious, but I think you care more than you let on. I looked at her steadily. I maintain what I am assigned to protect. She smiled faintly. That's close enough for me. She left the room with Vaggie following behind. I remained there a few minutes longer, listening to the quiet rhythm of the working machinery. Everything hummed evenly. No irregularities. No instability. I switched off the main lights and walked toward the hall. The reinforced walls reflected faint red light from the windows. The entire structure was firm, functional, alive in movement and sound. When I reached the lobby, Alastair was seated near the piano. He looked up as I entered, his grin unchanged. You've been quite industrious, my friend, he said pleasantly. The hotel hums like a contented creature now. System stabilized, I said. He chuckled. Ever the perfectionist. Do keep it up. It's rather entertaining to watch. Charlie called from the stairs. Good night, everyone. We'll start again tomorrow. Vaggie followed her up with a short nod toward me. Nice work today, Ferris. I remained standing in the lobby for a moment longer, observing the faint flicker of the lamps overhead. The circuit maintained steady flow. The structure endured. I turned toward the window. The skyline beyond the glass shimmered under constant red glow. I watched silently for a long time before returning upstairs. Chapter 5, Gears of Hospitality. I started early. The air inside the hotel carried faint warmth from the restored heating system I had installed 2 nights ago, but it was still uneven across the structure. The main boiler at the base of the building was operating at 73% efficiency. I intended to bring it to full function by the end of the day. When I descended the stairs, I saw Charlie in the lobby. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor with papers scattered around her, humming quietly as she sketched out notes. Her expression brightened immediately when she saw me. "Morning, Ferris," she said happily. "You're up early again." "I do not require rest," I said. She smiled, used to the answer by now. "Perfect. We're getting close to having some of the guest rooms ready. I thought you and I could start fixing the heating and water lines in that section today." "Understood," I said. "I have the tools prepared." Vaggie was leaning against the counter nearby. She was holding a checklist and reading over it carefully. "The pipes in the upper floors are ancient," she said. "Be careful when you start cutting into them. Half of them are corroded through." "I will replace all damaged sections," I said. She nodded. "Good. We can't have the place flooding again." Charlie stood, brushing dust from her skirt. "Come on, Ferris. Let's start with the second floor. I want to make it nice for when new guests arrive." I followed her up the staircase. Each step creaked slightly beneath my weight. The second floor was dim, lit only by one flickering bulb near the end of the hall. The air smelled faintly of mildew. She walked beside me, talking softly as we moved. "I know this place looks rough now," she said, "but I really believe we can make it feel warm and safe. Even in hell, people deserve that." Her words were filled with determination. I listened without comment and examined the nearest door frame. The paint had peeled away completely, and the metal handle was rusted. She unlocked the first room and stepped inside. "This one's not too bad," she said hopefully. The room was small. The walls were cracked, and the radiator in the corner was leaking dark water onto the floor. The ceiling fan hung crooked, half detached from the mount. The air was cold. I crossed the room, knelt near the radiator, and examined the joints. "The heating line is obstructed," I said. "Sediment buildup and corrosion." "Can it be fixed?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I will purge and reseal the connection." Charlie smiled brightly. "You're amazing." I opened the valve assembly and inserted a cable from the portable repair unit I carried. The device whirred quietly as it cleared debris from the pipe. The water began to flow evenly again, clean and steady. The radiator warmed within seconds. Charlie held her hands near it and smiled in relief. "Oh, that feels so much better." "Heat restored," I said. She turned and looked around the room. "If we can do this to every guest room, we'll finally be ready for real visitors." "I will proceed to the next," I said. We worked together for several hours. Each room presented a new set of issues: leaking valves, broken faucets, damaged wiring, shattered windows. I repaired the systems one by one. Charlie followed behind, sweeping, dusting, and recording notes in her book. She hummed softly as she worked, her mood constant. By midday, the second floor heating was stable. The air temperature had increased by several degrees. The faint sound of rushing water flowed through the pipes again. Charlie sat on the edge of a bed in one of the finished rooms, looking around with satisfaction. "It's starting to feel alive again," she said. I checked the readings from the portable monitor. "Pressure and heat are within safe range," I said. She looked at me with a smile. "You make it sound so technical, but I can tell you're proud." "I acknowledge successful repair," I said. "That counts," she replied, laughing quietly. I moved toward the window and checked the seals. "The frame allows air to escape. Insulation required." She stood and touched the window edge. Yeah, you're right. It's colder near the glass. I will reinforce the frame, I said. As I began sealing the edges with metal filler, she sat back down and watched closely. Ferris, can I ask something? Yes, I said. You always work so quietly, she said softly. Doesn't it ever get lonely? No, I said. Purpose is sufficient. She nodded thoughtfully but didn't press further. After a short pause, she smiled again. Well, I'm glad you're here anyway. We continued until the entire floor was operational. When we returned to the lobby, Vaggie was inspecting a large map of the hotel pinned to the wall. Husk sat at the bar, drinking quietly. Angel Dust lounged on a couch nearby, legs crossed, humming to himself. Charlie walked over and tapped the map. We've got the second floor's heating and water working, she announced proudly. Vaggie looked surprised. Already? That's fast. Ferris doesn't mess around, Charlie said with a grin. Vaggie smiled faintly. Guess not. What's next? The third floor, Charlie said. We can start on the wiring and bathrooms tomorrow. I stepped forward. The boiler will require recalibration to maintain additional load. Think you can handle that too? Vaggie asked. Yes, I said. Husk looked up lazily. You ever take a break, big guy? No, I said. Angel Dust smirked. Bet he doesn't even know how. Charlie laughed. He just likes keeping busy. Husk poured another drink. As long as he keeps the lights on, I ain't complaining. Alastair appeared near the corner of the lobby, as if drawn by the sound of conversation. His smile was wide and sharp, voice smooth and cheerful. Well, isn't this a productive household we've become? The very model of efficiency. Charlie greeted him with her usual enthusiasm. Ferris fixed the heating on the whole second floor. Alastair chuckled. Splendid. Perhaps soon we'll have guests who won't freeze upon entry. Exactly. Charlie said brightly. He turned his gaze toward me, still smiling. You work tirelessly, my good fellow. Quite the asset to our humble little enterprise. Maintenance is required for survival, I said. Indeed, he replied, tone light. How delightfully pragmatic. Charlie clapped her hands. All right, everyone, let's take a short break. Then we'll start preparing supplies for tomorrow's repairs. Angel Dust stretched. About time. My legs are killing me. Vaggie rolled her eyes. You didn't do anything. He grinned. Hey, looking pretty is hard work. Husk snorted. You wouldn't know. Their banter continued while Charlie went to make coffee. I stood near the generator panel, checking the readings again. Output levels were steady. Heat distribution across the building was consistent. Charlie returned a few minutes later, handing out cups. Here you go, Vaggie. Husk. Angel. And oh Ferris, you probably don't drink coffee, hey? Correct, I said. She smiled awkwardly. Right. Habit. The others gathered near the bar, talking quietly while I noted the new system readings in the maintenance log. The steady rhythm of their voices filled the space. It was background noise, but stable and calm. After the short rest, Charlie approached me again. Before we finish for the day, could you help me check the showers upstairs? The water pressure's still uneven. Yes, I said. We went back to the second floor. She tested the water while I examined the pipes beneath the sink. The valve hissed softly as I adjusted it. After a few seconds, the flow evened out. It's perfect, she said happily. You make everything look easy. Precision ensures reliability, I said. She laughed lightly. You really talk like a machine sometimes. I am efficient, I said. That's one way to put it, she replied with amusement. When I closed the valve, she crouched next to me, checking the pipes. You really think we can get this whole place working again? Yes, I said. She smiled warmly. Then I'll believe it too. We moved from room to room, testing the new systems. The floors creaked softly underfoot. The sound of running water filled the hall. Every pipe, every heater, every outlet worked as intended. By the time we returned downstairs, the lights across the lobby glowed evenly. The building no longer flickered with random surges. Charlie turned toward me, her expression bright. Ferris, thank you. You've done so much. The hotel finally feels alive again. I adjusted my gloves. There is still work remaining. There's always work, she said gently. But you've made a difference. I did not respond immediately. She smiled and looked around at the others. We'll finish the third floor tomorrow. After that, maybe we can start taking in our first real guests. Vaggie nodded. If the structure holds, we're ready. It will, I said. Angel Dust raised his glass lazily. Look at us, all domestic and stuff. Husk muttered. Don't jinx it. Charlie laughed softly. It's progress. That's all that matters. I remained near the window, watching the dim light of the city beyond the glass. The noise of the others faded into a calm rhythm behind me. The building was warm, secure, and functional. The hotel's systems hummed evenly through the walls. The circuits and pipes moved together in steady unison. Chapter 6, Lines and Watchers. I began before the lobby lights warmed to full brightness. The hotel's heart pushed steady power along the reinforced lines I had routed through the prior week. The second floor held its temperature. The boiler output remained even. With the structure stable, the next step was simple in scope and complex in execution: automated maintenance. I had drafted the network the night before in a clean grid, room by room, hall by hall, equipment by equipment. Sensors, relays, cutoffs, and silent alerts. It would prevent neglect from turning into damage. It would reduce guesswork. It would keep the building steady when hands were busy with guests. Charlie was in the lobby when I came downstairs, sitting on the floor with her clipboard on her knees and a stack of colored sticky notes on the carpet. Her smile rose the second she saw me. Morning, Ferris, she said happily. You're early. Again. I am ready to install the monitoring network, I said. I will need access to all junctions and mechanical rooms. I will tag every heat line, water line, and electrical bus. We will have shut-off capability from the lobby and basement. She blinked, then grinned wider. That sounds incredible. Yes. Do whatever you need. I'll help however I can. Vaggie stood at the front doors, checking the new hinges with her hand. She looked over her shoulder at us. You're doing the alarm system today, right? Not an alarm system, I said. An automated maintenance network. It will include silent alerts for leaks, heat spikes, and power surges. We will add door status indicators for the exterior entrances. Not a trap. Not a weapon. Good, she said firmly. We don't need anything that escalates things. Confirmed, I said. Husk sat behind the bar with a glass already on the counter. He squinted at me. If you're gonna run wires through my bottles, don't. I will root behind the shelving, I said. He nodded without argument. Angel Dust lounged across two chairs, one leg rocking slowly. He smirked. Ooh, security cam time? You putting eyes everywhere, big guy. Not cameras, I said. Sensors. This is maintenance. So, no fun, he said with a lazy grin. Nifty burst out of the hallway with a bucket and a spray bottle, eyes shining. Are we fixing the vents? The vents are gross. Please fix the vents. I can clean them after if you open them. I love vents. Yes, I said. Vent pressure sensors are included. She clapped rapidly, almost bouncing. Yay! Alastair stepped into view as though the music of the lobby had called him, smile set and steady, hands resting lightly in his pockets. My, what a modern turn for our dear establishment! Discreet observers and dutiful little warnings. How thorough! Thoroughness prevents failure, I said. He chuckled without pushing further. I placed the kit on the reception desk. Inside were small coiled bundles of insulated wire stripped from broken fixtures, a set of salvaged reed switches, pressure transducers I had taken from a dead boiler at the end of the block, a handful of thermistors, patched logic boards repurposed from 3 ruined radios, and housings I had hammered into shape from thin sheet metal. Nothing pretty. Everything functional. Each unit had a simple test lead and a label strip I had stamped with numbers. Charlie leaned over the box. You made all of these? Yes, I said. They will report to 2 panels. One above the lobby desk for fast checks. One in the basement near the generator for deeper analysis. She was delighted. I love it. Start with the main run, I said. I will string the backbone line along the ceiling of the main hall. That will feed branches to each floor. I will need a ladder. On it, Vaggie said, already moving to the storage room. She carried it out herself and set it down without a scrape. Where first? I tilted the ladder to the first ceiling panel and unlatched it. Dust fell. I slid the first cable through, pulling it hand over hand until it reached the central beam that carried most of our wires. I tied it off, clipped the line into the beam brackets, and used metal staples to secure every foot. No slack. No sag. No accidental snags. Charlie held the remaining coil steady, feeding me line. You're very precise, she said softly. Precision reduces failure, I said. She smiled. We moved slowly across the hall. I cut access slots every few feet and seated the cable with the same spacing each time. Vaggie kept people clear of falling debris. Angel Dust wandered by twice, offering commentary I ignored. Husk poured a drink and stayed out of the way. Nifty followed behind me on the floor with a long-handled duster, happily clearing every speck as it fell. When the backbone reached the far side of the lobby, I lowered the end and fed it into the mounting box above the reception desk. I screwed it shut and began soldering each conductor to the board. The smell of flux filled the space. The lead on the board glowed a firm red when I connected power. I pressed the test switch. It blinked twice. Good. Charlie leaned closer, eyes bright. So this will tell us if anything goes wrong. It will tell us before something goes wrong, I said. If a pipe starts to leak, the pressure will drop and the light will change. If a heater runs too hot, the temperature line will trip. If the exterior doors are opened, the reads will report their status on the panel and I will enable a chime if you want it. Maybe no chime, Vaggie said. Let's keep that quiet. Silent mode default, I said. I routed the second feed down through the floor. Basement next, I said. We moved as a group. The basement smelled of oil and wet stone. The generator thumped in a steady rhythm. I opened the side cabinet on the main frame and installed the second panel on the masonry wall, drilling clean holes and sinking anchors. I wired it in parallel to the lobby board, ran a test current, and watched the LEDs sequence in order. I held my breath for 2 seconds. All steady. I exhaled and marked the board with a pencil, main base. Charlie's voice was soft behind me. You're very calm when you work. I am focused, I said. She nodded and reached up to touch the edge of the panel with a fingertip as if it might flinch. I like that the indicators are simple. Simple is reliable, I said. From there, the work became repetitive and careful. I started with water. The hotel's lines radiated up from a central manifold near the boiler. I installed a pressure sensor on each branch feed, soldered quick connectors, labeled each junction with metal tags, and sealed them with resin. For the returns, I put flow sensors where the pipes narrowed near the service shafts. I tied each into the backbone with clean splices and tested each route with a hand pump. The panel reported pressure on each line within 2 digits of target. I noted the readings in the book Charlie had given me last week. She watched every step, making small notes in her handwriting. If something fails, this will tell us which line. Yes, I said. Each tag matches a light. East 2H. West 3W. Basement 1R. I will make a legend for the desk. Perfect, she said happily. Nifty crawled into the low vents without hesitation when I asked her to loosen the mounting nuts. She passed me bolts and screws with quick hands, smiling with each one. These are gross. But they're tight now. You want me to scrub the inside after you're done? She asked eagerly. Yes, I said. After I install the vane sensors. Vane sensors, she repeated, curious. Small arms that change angle when airflow drops, I said. If a duct clogs, we will see the change. She nodded rapidly and almost sprinted to fetch her brush. The heat network took longer. I added thermistors to the radiator lines on each floor, near where the branches split to individual rooms. I tinned the leads, soldered them to fused resistors, and covered them with heat shrink sleeves. I fixed each to the pipe with metal clamps and thermal paste for accurate readings. The panel upstairs gained 2 full rows of new lights. I tested 3 radiators on the second floor by partially closing valves. The panel changed cleanly. I reopened them and watched the lights return to normal. Good. The building would now tell me if someone turned a valve too far or if a blockage formed. Electrical came next. I tied current sensors around the main lines feeding each wing. I added small inline fuses to sensitive branches. I secured the wires away from sharp edges. The panel gained another column of status lights on both boards. The basement throbbed with steady power, no spikes, no DIPs. We took a break in the lobby. Charlie brought out a tray with water glasses and set it on the front desk. She glanced up at the new panel, cheeks lifted. It looks official, she said. Vaggie studied it carefully, scanning the tags and LEDs. I like this, she said. It feels organized. Husk stared at the panel and then at me. If one of those lights starts flashing during my nap, I'm not fixing anything. I will fix it, I said. He snorted. Good. Angel Dust stepped to the desk, leaned over the panel, and squinted. So this is like a Christmas tree for problems. It is a diagnostic array, I said. Yeah, sure, he said with a grin. Looks neat, big guy. Alastair stood near the piano, listening to all of it with that amused tone in his silence. A composed system, set to a very steady rhythm. Do carry on, he said pleasantly. I returned to work. The exterior doors required more care. I installed reed switches inside the reinforced frames where they would not be seen and not be damaged. I ran the thin signal wires inside the wall cavity, pulled them down through the utility channel, and brought them cleanly into the panel box. I labeled each one. FRONTL. FRONTR. Alley. Kitchen. When I closed each door, the corresponding lights turned steady. When I opened them, they changed. I set the panel to silent, as requested. Only the lights would inform. After the doors, I set to the vents. Nifty had already cleaned 3 mains to a shine, her hair dusted with grey. She waved when I climbed the ladder. All clear, she said proudly. There were crumbs, hair, a nail, and something I don't want to talk about in there. It's gone now. Good, I said. I slid the vane sensors in place, checking that each moved freely and returned to neutral. I mounted each with 2 screws and ran the lines to the backbone. Each was numbered and noted on the panel legend. By midday, I had completed the lobby, the first floor corridors, and the basement. We paused only long enough for Charlie to reorganize her notes and for Vaggie to do a perimeter sweep. When she returned, she gave me a nod. No trouble outside, she said. She looked at the panel again. Everything's still steady. Next floor, I said. We moved to the second floor landing. I opened the wall panels I had resealed the week before and added branch lines. I ran wire through the ceiling space above each hallway and down into each service closet. I installed heat sensors at the manifold that fed the floor, added 2 pressure sensors for redundancy, and mounted a small maintenance box in the hall so I could isolate problems by wing without a trip to the basement. I kept the box simple. 1 switch to cut flow. 1 switch to restore. 1 reset button in case of surge. I labeled them in block lettering. Charlie touched the face of the box gently. Residents could use this if something happened and you weren't nearby. Yes, I said. I will show them how to use it. Only these 3 controls. That's perfect, she said softly. In the first room, I mounted a small outlet tester behind the dresser and tied it into the network with a thin lead. If the outlet failed, the panel would flag it. In the bathroom, I added a moisture sensor behind the sink. If a pipe started leaking, we would know before the floorboards recorded it. I sealed the sensor in a small metal case with open vents and mounted it to the wall studs. No one would notice it unless they looked closely. We moved room to room. Charlie swept as we went, humming sometimes. She started to name the rooms as she worked, using simple names that fit the doors in her head: sunrise, brick, blackout, corner, blue chair. I wrote the room numbers next to them in my maintenance book because it made inventory easier later when she used those names. She always smiled when she heard me say one back to confirm a reading. It seemed to matter to her. It cost me nothing to adopt the labels. It improved communication. The panel downstairs gained an entire row of lights for the second floor. When I powered the branch live, the new line settled without flicker. I checked the readings, then wrote each number in the log with the time. We took a short break near the stairwell. Charlie handed me a rag to wipe metal dust from my hands, even though the dust did not bother me. She watched me a moment while I folded it and set it aside. "You're very considerate," she said softly. "Even when you don't have to be." "I follow process," I said. "Process accounts for people." Her eyes warmed. "Thank you." Vaggie returned with a bucket of cold water, set it down, and took a long drink from a tin cup. "How long until the third floor gets the same treatment?" "By night," I said. "If we are uninterrupted." "We'll keep the lobby clear," she said. "Finish what you need." We moved up. The third floor had more damage. Sections of the ceiling had sagged from old leaks. I cut away ruined plaster, checked for live wires, rerouted anything vulnerable, and boxed dangerous sections with metal plates screwed into solid framing. I did not waste time making it pretty. Safety came first. Nifty collected the debris with quick arms and stacked it in neat piles against the wall. "I'll dump this in the alley later," she said cheerfully. "I'll make the stacks even." "I like even." "Acceptable," I said. At the far end of the hall, a corner of the floor had shifted enough to misalign the door frames. I measured the slope and added a shim under the hinge plate to correct it. It was not perfect, but the doors were no longer scraping the floor. Charlie tested one with a gentle push. It swung open without a sound. She smiled at that soundless movement like it meant more than it did. I took a quiet note of that. Quiet doors were good. Quiet doors calmed residents. I would adjust more as I had time. The bathroom on that floor had one broken vent fan. I removed the motor, grounded a spare frame, and wound a tight coil from salvaged copper. I set the brushes, greased the bearings, and mounted the assembly. When I threw power, the fan started at a steady speed. Air moved. Charlie stood near it and nodded. Much better, she said. We added the third floor to the panel. The lights settled again. The grid looked balanced now. I felt a clean satisfaction behind my ribs at the pattern, even and stable across 3 layers of the building. Husk climbed the stairs slowly with a bottle in one hand and glanced at the maintenance box waiting on the landing. You put shutoffs here too? He asked. Yes, I said. If the kitchen line surges, you can close flow from this floor without going to the basement. Good, he said, and then squinted at the small legend tacked next to it. You wrote instructions. Hey. Yes, I said. He stared at me for a beat, then gave a grudging nod. Not bad. By late afternoon, the automated maintenance network was complete across the lobby, basement, first floor, second floor, and most of the third. I moved slower for the final checks, testing each branch twice. I sent small pulses through the signal lines to confirm there were no shorts in hidden spaces. The panel answered cleanly. No noise. No false positives. We stood in the lobby with the lights steady overhead. The new panel faced the room like a clean control face, simple and readable. Charlie stood in front of it, lips parted with quiet pride. She lifted her hand and traced the air above several labels as if reading them aloud made them real: FRONTL, FRONTR, Alley, East 2H, West 3W, Boiler, VENTA, VENTB. She turned to me with a small, controlled excitement in her expression. So if something goes wrong, she said, we'll see it here. Yes, I said. We will see it here before it escalates. Vaggie exhaled and rested her spear against the counter. This will make my life easier, she said. If someone's tampering outside, we'll know. If something breaks upstairs, we'll know. Correct, I said. Angel Dust leaned on the desk beside Charlie and wiggled his fingers at the lights. It's like a little city map. Very cute. It is a systems panel, I said. Cute systems panel, he corrected, amused. You did good, Metal Man. I turned and picked up the small chime box I had assembled from an old doorbell and a resistor bank. Optional, I said. If you want sound on the front doors only, I can enable it and set volume low. Charlie considered it, eyes thoughtful. Let's keep it silent for now. If it becomes a problem, we can add sound. I set the box back in the kit without argument. Understood. Alastair approached the panel with that light, steady gait that never faltered. He tilted his head at the rows of LEDs and the clean labeling. A tidy and attentive arrangement, dear Ferris, he said with gentle amusement. One could almost believe the hotel cares about itself. It is being cared for, I said. Quite, he replied, smiling. Nifty popped up at my elbow, face smudged with dust and eyes bright. I cleaned all the vents you tagged. They are perfect now. The little arms you put in wiggle when the fan is on. It's very cute. She rocked on her heels, pleased. Good work, I said, and her grin widened further at the acknowledgement. Charlie pressed her palms together. What's left for today? She asked. Final calibration, I said. Then I will draw a clear legend and post it under the panel. After that, I will teach you, Vaggie, Husk, and Nifty how to read it and which switches to use if I am occupied. Perfect, she said. We gathered at the desk. I showed them the layout. I spoke in straightforward terms. Green steady means normal. Yellow steady means watch. Flashing means act. This column is water. This is heat. This is electrical. This is vents. These 4 lights at the top are exterior doors. Silent. This switch cuts the second floor water feed. This restores it. Do not touch this bottom switch unless the boiler light goes yellow or red. If it does, flip it to isolate the heat loop and call me. Do not keep it off longer than 5 minutes. The building will cool too fast. Charlie nodded quickly, absorbing the process. Got it. Vaggie watched my hands carefully, tried each switch once, then put them back exactly where they started. Simple enough, she said. Husk squinted at the labels again, then pointed at the basement entry on the legend. If that one goes red and you're not here, I'm waking you up. I do not sleep, I said. Yet, he muttered. Nifty repeated the meanings back to me without missing a beat, excited to be included. Green good, yellow watch, red fix. Water, heat, electricity, vents, doors. I can do this. I like this. Angel Dust clapped slowly. Look at us, a real operation. Can I have a light that flashes when my hot water's ready? You can touch the pipe, Vaggie said dryly. He laughed. Rude. I drew the final legend in clean lines, block letters, and simple arrows. I taped it beneath the panel, then backed away and looked at the entire installation from the far end of the lobby. Cable runs were tidy. Mounting points were even. The panel was readable from across the room. The basement board matched it, mirrored neatly on the masonry. Complete, I said. Charlie's relief was visible. She stepped closer, resting one hand flat on the desk and the other lightly over her chest for a moment before catching herself. Thank you, she said quietly. Really? This helps more than I can say. I inclined my head. We will hold steady. Angel Dust tapped the desk twice and straightened. All right, I'm gonna go take a bath with actual pressure and pretend I earned it. Don't flood anything, Vaggie said, without much hope. He winked. No promises. Husk lifted his glass in a half salute toward me. The bar fridge is still cold. That's all I care about. Confirmed, I said. Alastair drifted back toward the piano, fingers brushing the keys once with a small sound that died at once in the air. He glanced back at the panel, then at me. A serviceable day, he said pleasantly. Do keep it up. I turned back to the workbench I had set up near the reception desk and began assembling 2 small spares, one pressure sensor, one thermistor unit. I labeled each and placed them in a metal tin with foam. I wrote spare 1 on the lid. I stacked the toolkit beside it, closed, sorted, ready. Charlie hovered near the desk another moment. Do you ever do anything that isn't work? She asked with a faint smile. Yes, I said. She waited. I plan the next work. She laughed softly, shaking her head. Of course you do. I set my hands on the edge of the desk and met her eyes. You will call me if any light changes, I said. Immediately, she promised. I'll keep an eye on it. Good, I said. We spread out. Vaggie moved to the front doors and checked the street, her expression steady. Husk cleaned a glass with a rag without showing interest in the glass. Nifty disappeared into the vents again with her brush and a hum. Angel Dust called out a teasing line from the stairs and vanished down the hall. Alastair's music stayed low and even. I walked the perimeter of the ground floor one last time with a clipboard and a marker. I pressed each panel cover. I checked each door reed with a magnet. I listened to the generator's beat and felt the vibration through the floor. I stood in the boiler room and adjusted the regulator by half a turn to stabilize feed temperature for the third floor. I stood still for 3 slow counts until the needle settled. I noted the new value. I returned to the lobby. The panel glowed in neat rows. Green, 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 green. Steady. Charlie stood nearby, eyes on the lights, a small smile on her face that she tried to hide when she noticed me watching. She turned her head and wiped dust from her sleeve with a thumb. "Sorry," she said, embarrassed without a reason. "I just like looking at it." "That is the point," I said. "It shows you what you need to see." She brightened again. "Yeah." We remained there a little longer, quiet, with the panel between us like a simple, useful promise. When she finally stepped back, she did it with care, as if she did not want to disturb its order. She looked up at me. "Tomorrow, third floor bathrooms and the remaining vents?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "And I will finish the last branch of the maintenance network in the North Hall. After that, only routine checks." "Routine," she repeated with visible satisfaction. "I like that word." "Routine prevents failure," I said. She smiled. "I know." I lifted my toolkit and headed for the North Hall to pre-stage the final wire run. The cable slid cleanly through the ceiling space. The staples went in with a firm sound. I secured the last meter near a corner brace and left the end coiled and labeled for the morning. I stood a moment in the quiet hall and let the sense of completion settle in my chest in a small, contained way. Then I turned back. On the way through the lobby, I paused at the panel once more and checked every light, just to see the pattern I had created hold steady in a complete set. It did. I wrote one last line in the maintenance book with time and status. Green. 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 I placed the book on the shelf beneath the panel where Charlie could reach it quickly. Then I stood still and listened to the even sound of the hotel. Pipes hissed gently at a steady rate. The generator thumped quietly. The vents moved air without rattle. The building, for once, required nothing. I stayed there a while longer, hands together behind my back, eyes on the panel, and let the silence rest. Chapter 7, Routine and Readiness. The panel in the lobby held steady through the night cycle. I confirmed status twice before sunrise. The boiler temperature rose and settled. Water pressure stayed within range. Vent airflow did not drop. Electrical draw leveled after Angel Dust finished his bath and Husk closed the bar fridge. At first light, I was already in the North Hall with the last coil of wire for the maintenance network. The cable slid through the ceiling recess without friction. I secured each staple at even intervals and clipped the final length into a junction box I had mounted yesterday. I stripped, tinned, soldered, and sealed. I pressed the test button on the small board. The LED blinked once, then held. "Done," I said softly to the empty hall. The hotel had begun to hold quiet in a new way. Fewer rattles in the vents. No unplanned clicks from weak relays. The noise that remained was work, not failure. I carried my toolkit downstairs. Charlie was already at the front desk, studying the legend I had posted under the panel last night. Her hair was a little messy from sleep. She tried to smooth it down with one hand and smiled when she saw me. "Good morning," she said happily. "Everything looks normal. I've been watching the lights. I think I remember what each one is." "You will remember after practice," I said. "Today we finalize the network on the third floor and restore the remaining bathrooms and vents. Then I will teach you and the others the daily checks." "Perfect," she said, energized. "Vaggie is getting the ladder. Nifty is already cleaning the third floor. Husk said he might help after his coffee." Angel Dust sprawled across the lobby couch like he had paid for the position. He waved without getting up. "Yo, boss man. I slept like a baby with that new heater. 10 out of 10. Do not adjust the valves in your room, I said. He smirked. No promises. Vaggie came from the storage room carrying the ladder over one shoulder, steady and careful. North Hall done? She asked. Yes, I said. She set the ladder near the stairs and studied the panel. Everything's green. That is the point, I said. Alastair entered as if he had been there all along, smile unchanged, eyes full of quiet amusement. What a disciplined arrangement, he said lightly. You've made the building behave. It responds to clear input, I said. He inclined his head in polite acknowledgement and moved toward the piano with his hands behind his back. I lifted the toolkit. Third floor, I said. Charlie bounced once on her toes from simple eagerness and followed me up the stairs with Vaggie close behind. The third floor smelled stronger of cleaning solution. Nifty had already cleared the hall, stacked debris in tight columns against the far wall, and wiped the radiator covers until they reflected light. She waved quickly when she saw us. I cleared the vents you tagged and scrubbed the floors. I put the screws in a jar. Do you want me to replace the vent covers now or after your checks? After the checks, I said. We will test airflow first. Okay, she said cheerfully, then zipped toward the far bathroom. I left you the broken fan housing and the cracked tiles. I put them in a neat pile. Thank you, I said. We started with the remaining vents. I climbed the ladder, opened the access panel, and checked the vane sensor I had mounted yesterday. It moved freely and returned to neutral when I pushed it. I made a small adjustment to the mounting angle to match the line pressure I wanted. I spoke to Nifty without looking down. Turn on the fan, I said. It's on, she called from inside the bathroom. The vane lifted to the exact angle I calculated. I marked it with a thin line on the bracket. Good, I said. We repeated the process for each vent on the floor. Vaggie watched the hallway for trouble between checks. Charlie handed me bolts and small screws and picked up metal filings with a rag. She hummed lightly as she worked. Once the vents held their targets, I moved to the bathrooms. 2 had proper pressure and temperature after my repairs yesterday. 4 did not. The first problem was a cold feed valve clogged with rust flakes. I shut the line, removed the valve, flushed the pipe, and installed a clean gate from my parts box. I opened the flow and heard the proper rush of water. I adjusted the stopper. The faucet ran without stagger. I checked the trap and the sealant. No leaks. Much better, Charlie said warmly, holding her hand under the water like a small test. She smiled when the flow stayed even. The second problem was a cracked seat on a fill valve. I took the tank apart and replaced the seat from a donor valve. I tightened the bolts, reset the float, and waited. No seep. I pressed the lever to test. Refill hit target in 4 seconds. I nodded once to myself and wrote the result in my log. The third problem was a shower that bled heat into the line. The mixer valve failed to close properly. I removed the handle and faceplate, accessed the cartridge, and swapped it with a refurbished unit I had prepared. I tested the range and confirmed no drift on the thermistor. The shower ran at the set point, and the panel downstairs did not show a spike. I clicked the faceplate back into place. The fourth problem required new seals at the drain. I cleaned the seat, applied fresh sealant, pressed the ring evenly, and let it sit. I would return to test after the sealant cured. I recorded the time. Between rooms, Charlie worked quietly. She carried fresh towels up from a storage closet and placed them in stacks. She wiped mirrors, dusted light fixtures, and checked that doors closed without catching. She did not treat these tasks as minor. She checked every corner twice. She smiled when an action had a visible effect. I noticed the way her shoulders relaxed each time water came out clear or a fan ran without wobble. It was not relief. It was a simple satisfaction that matched my own. We paused at the stairwell to check the maintenance box I had mounted there yesterday. I flipped the water isolation switch to confirm that the branch shut properly. The panel downstairs would have flashed yellow if there had been a surge. It did not flash. I returned the switch. I wrote the test in the log in block letters. Vaggie moved to the far end of the hall. "I'll do another perimeter walk," she said. "If anyone's hovering in the alley, I'll run them off." "Proceed," I said. She left us with the floor. Nifty followed behind me into the next bathroom with a scrub brush and a bucket, waiting near the door for my signal. When I turned the tap, she watched the seam where the tile met the tub, eyes narrowing. "No more seep," she said with satisfaction. "I'll bleach the grout. It will be perfect." "Do so," I said. While she worked, I went back to room 309 and removed the cover on the ceiling fan in the main room. The motor was clean. The mount, however, had a hairline crack near the bracket. I took down the entire unit, replaced the mount with a plate I cut from steel yesterday, drilled new holes, and used longer lag screws into solid wood. I reseated the fan and tested it on low and medium. It did not wobble. It ran without noise. Charlie stood in the doorway watching the blades rotate. Her hands were folded around her clipboard against her stomach. "This is going to make someone very happy," she said with quiet pride. "People like stable rooms," I said. She nodded strongly. "They do." We took 2 trips to the basement for parts. Husk watched us pass with his eyes half-lidded. He lifted his mug by a finger and smirked without speaking. I took 2 feet of copper pipe from the salvage pile, a bag of washers, and a short length of braided hose. I labeled the items on the inventory list on the wall and initialed the line. Back on the 3rd floor, we reached the last bathroom. The valve assembly under the sink was missing entirely. Someone had removed it long before I arrived. I pulled a fresh pair from my kit, seated them, and tightened the compression fittings. I opened the water slowly, checked for leaks, and adjusted both valves until the flow matched the target. I tightened the lock nuts and stepped back. Charlie turned the handles and smiled when the water obeyed. "It's so nice," she said softly. "Just having things work when you touch them." "Consistency is good for residents," I said. "It's good for all of us," she said, eyes warm. We returned to the lobby to update the log. The panel held steady. Green across each column. I added a second sheet to the legend for the new 3rd floor branches and slid it into a clear sleeve under the board. I drew the routes with simple lines and labeled each room with both number and the names Charlie had used. I placed a small pencil on a string beside it. "It looks neat," Charlie said approvingly. "People can follow this." "Good," I said. "We begin training now." She brightened and called out, "Everyone! Quick meeting at the front desk. Maintenance checks." Husk groaned and put down his mug with a slow clunk. Angel Dust flopped onto his feet with exaggerated effort and sauntered over. Nifty popped out from the stairwell, hands still damp, drying them on her apron. Vaggie returned through the front doors 5 seconds later, scanning the street one last time before joining us. Alastair drifted over in a patient line. I stood beside the panel and kept my tone level. "This will be simple," I said. "You will do 2 routines every day. Morning and evening. It will take 3 minutes." Angel Dust lifted 2 fingers. 3 minutes? I can give you 3 minutes. "Focus," Vaggie said, elbowing him lightly. "Morning routine," I continued. "Step 1, check exterior doors. 4 lights at the top. All green. If any are not green when all doors are closed, inform me. Step 2, check water. Top row on the left. All green steady. If any are flashing, go to that floor and look for visible leaks. Do not touch the main shutoff unless you see water or the pressure light goes red. If red, flip the water isolation switch on the nearest maintenance box and call me. Step 3, heat. Second row. All green steady. If any are yellow steady, note the room number and monitor. If flashing, check the radiator in that room. Confirm the valve is not closed by a resident. If open and still flashing, inform me. Step 4, electrical. Third row. All green steady. If any are yellow, turn off non-essential devices in that wing. If red, call me and keep people away from outlets until I arrive. Step 5, vents. Last row. All green steady. If any are yellow, have nifty check for blockage. If red, turn off that fan and inform me. I paused to point at the small laminated card I had taped next to the panel. It is written here. If you forget, read this. Nifty recited the steps under her breath, then nodded rapidly. I got it. I like steps. Evening routine, I said. Step 1, repeat all checks. Step 2, record any yellow lights in the log with time. Step 3, reset any false positives after confirmation. Step 4, ensure all exterior doors are closed and locked. Step 5, note boiler temperature. If it is more than 2 marks above the line, inform me. Do not adjust it. Husk squinted, then leaned in and tapped the laminated card with a finger. You put pictures. Good. Yes, I said. So no guesswork. Charlie looked between the panel and the group with obvious pride. This is so good, she said happily. We can do this. Now individually, I said. You will each run a check once. Vaggie stepped forward without being asked. I'll go first, she said. She scanned the lights, spoke each label, and confirmed status in a clean voice. Doors green. Water green. Heat green. Electricity green. Vents green. No yellow. No red. She looked at me. Correct, I said. Flip the test switch for the second floor water. She flipped it. A single light on the water column went yellow. She did not flinch. She pointed at the maintenance box on the wall. If that were real, I would isolate here, check the floor, then call you. Correct, I said. Reset. She reset the test switch and stepped back. Husk went next at a slow pace. He squinted, checked the legend, and took a moment to make sure he matched the labels. He nodded when each one matched. All right, he said, tired but satisfied. I can do this. Good, I said. Nifty went after him and ran through the entire routine in half the time, double-checking the vents twice with visible enjoyment. If one goes yellow, I check the duct. If it's crumbs again, I vacuum. If it's a nail again, I use the pliers this time. Yes, I said. Angel Dust swaggered up last, ran his finger along the panel edge, and then did the check correctly without any errors. He grinned at me at the end. See? I can be responsible. Vaggie snorted. Occasionally. He blew her a kiss. Love you too. Alastair watched the entire exercise from a few steps back with calm interest. He did not volunteer to participate. He tilted his head when I looked at him. I will leave the hands-on portion to our more hands-on friends, he said pleasantly. As you wish, I said. I did not press. I handed Charlie a small bell-shaped timer with a single button. If you want a reminder for the routines, press this and set it by the clock, I said. It will buzz at the set time. It does not chime. She accepted it with both hands like a small gift. Thank you, she said sincerely. We'll use it. Now we finish the remaining vents and bathrooms, I said. Then we prepare the rooms. Rooms, Charlie repeated with visible excitement. Yes. We returned to the third floor to complete the last tasks. Nifty had already scrubbed the grout in the room with the repaired drain. The sealant had cured. I tested the drain. No seep. I ran the shower and the sink together to test flow. Pressure remained stable. I shut them off and wiped down the fixtures with a clean cloth to remove fingerprints. I reattached the last vent covers with new screws. I checked the fan bearings in one room by listening close with my ear near the housing. No grinding. In the hallway, Charlie stood at a folding table she had carried up. She had sorted linens from a cabinet that had survived the years of dust. She shook out clean sheets, folded them into stacks, and checked each pillowcase for damage. She arranged towels in even piles like small walls. She handled everything with care and checked corners twice. She made a quiet content sound when a sheet lay flat across a mattress without wrinkles. I tightened the last radiator cap in a corner room and wrote the final entry in my log for the floor. I said, "Third floor complete." Charlie spun on her heel with a smile. "That sounds so good." "Now we stage the rooms," I said. "I will install simple door indicators tied to the panel so we know if a door is left open. They will not lock. They will simply report status." "Good idea," Vaggie said from the doorway, returning from a short patrol. "Keeps people from wandering in and out without us noticing." I opened my toolkit and removed a small stack of reed switches and magnets. I mounted each switch inside the door frame and set the magnet into the door edge. I ran the leads into the wall cavity and down into the nearest vertical chase. I tied the branch to the lobby panel. When each door closed, its small light in the new row turned green. When open, it turned yellow. I labeled the row guest status and drew a matching line on the legend. We moved room by room. Nifty vacuumed corners and wiped baseboards until they were free of grit. Charlie dressed each bed with fresh sheets and tucked the corners tightly. She adjusted pillows until the edges lined up with the headboard. She pulled curtain rods straight. She wiped windowsills and looked out at the city for a moment each time, her face steady with determination. She did not look away from the view out of discomfort. She looked at it like something she intended to balance with the order she was making here. Angel Dust wandered in at one point, leaned in the door frame, and whistled low. "We're going classy now. Gonna have to keep my shoes off on this floor." "Do that anyway," Vaggie said flatly. He laughed and pushed off the frame. "Relax, I'm joking. It looks nice." Husk arrived carrying a stack of light bulbs and a pocket full of fuses. "You left this in the basement," he said, handing me the box of bulbs. "Figured you'd want it." "Thank you," I said. I checked each socket for tightness and replaced 2 bulbs that flickered. I seated them firmly. The room lights warmed to steady. We continued until dusk, which looked identical to morning but felt different in the hall because the work had been done. The third floor smelled slightly of soap and clean metal. The vents moved air without sounding tired. The water ran clear and hot or clear and cold as chosen. We gathered at the panel for the evening routine to test that the training took hold. Charlie took point. Her voice was steady. "Doors green. Water green. Heat green. Electrical green. Vents green. Guests row is all yellow since the doors are open right now. I'll close the rooms we're not using." "Proceed," I said. She ran to the stairs with a laugh and not much dignity in her rush, and we heard each door click shut. The guest status lights turned green one by one. She came back down slightly breathless and saluted with 2 fingers at her forehead in a playful way before dropping her hand when she remembered herself. "Good," I said. "Feels good," she replied, cheeks flushed. Vaggie did the next check and initialed the log. Husk read the boiler temperature and wrote the number like it mattered. Nifty looked proud at the vents column and drew a small check mark next to the word vent in the log with a flourish. Alastair watched with that light humor that did not change. The schedule suits you all, he said. It gives the day a frame. It keeps the building from failing, I said. Of course, he said politely. I set down the pen and closed the log. All rooms on the third floor are ready, I said. Second floor holds. We will repeat these checks tomorrow. If any light changes, you will inform me immediately. Immediately, Charlie repeated. I looked at her. She held my gaze without flinching, then nodded once and smiled again. We did it, she said quietly. I raised a hand and made a small adjustment to the panel's dimmer so the lights were readable from across the room without glare. I stepped back and crossed my arms behind my back the way I had when I completed machinery that mattered. My chest felt light and controlled. It was a small shift. It stayed in place, steady. The hotel did not require anything from me for the next minute. I let that minute stand. Then I walked toward the stairs to make one last pass of the halls with the toolkit in hand, moving slowly and checking corners for anything I had missed. The floors held. The walls did not creak when I pressed a palm to them. The vents sighed at the same volume in every room. The radiators clicked once and then held temperature. I made 3 small marks with a pencil where paint had peeled near a switch plate so I would remember to fix it tomorrow. I returned to the lobby after the pass. The panel looked the same. Green, 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 green. Charlie leaned lightly on the counter and watched the lights with a calm, satisfied smile she did not hide this time. When she realized I was there, she lifted her head. This is good, she said gently. It is acceptable, I said. It was my way of acknowledging the same thing. She laughed softly at the word and nodded. Acceptable, she repeated like she liked the shape of it. The day ended without alarms. The panel glowed. The hotel breathed in simple, regular work. We prepared for the next set of tasks by cleaning our tools and putting them away in order. That was enough. Chapter 8, Procedure and Practice. The lobby panel stayed in the same pattern when I checked it before sunrise. The boiler needle rested on the mark the first had set yesterday. Water pressure held at the level I wanted across all floors. The vent column did not change. Electrical draw stayed even. I recorded the numbers in the log and closed the cover. I carried a stack of blank forms, a metal clipboard, a grease pencil, and a short ruler to the front desk. I set everything in a line. I laid a sheet of stiff card on the counter and wrote the header with block letters, Hazbin Hotel Daily Operations Manual. I kept the letters even. I set the ruler along the top edge and drew a thin line beneath the title. Charlie came down the stairs halfway through the header, hair tied back with a ribbon, eyes still soft with sleep. She smiled when she saw me working. You're making the manual, she said happily. Yes, I said. Simple language. Clear steps. 1 page for daily routines. 1 for each emergency. 1 diagram for each maintenance box. I love it, she said, pulling up a stool. Do you want help with the diagrams? Yes, I said. You will tell me if my labels are unclear. I can do that, she said, ready. Vaggie joined us a minute later, steady and awake. She scanned the panel with a habit she had already built and nodded when she saw the pattern unchanged. All green, she said. Training begins after the sheets are posted, I said. We will run morning and evening routines for 1 week. You will record notes and any deviations. Good, she said. Let's make it stick. I wrote the first sheet in short lines. I did not waste words. Daily routine morning. Verify exterior doors closed and locked. Confirm 4 door lights green. Verify water column green. If any yellow or red, go to the floor. If visible leak, isolate at nearest maintenance box. Call Ferris. Verify heat column green. If any yellow, check radiator valve. If flashing, call Ferris. Verify electrical column green. If yellow, reduce load. If red, keep clear and call Ferris. Verify vents column green. If yellow, call Nifty to clean duct. If red, turn off fan and call Ferris. Record anything unusual in the log. Initial and note time. Daily routine evening. Repeat all checks above. Verify guest door row matches expected occupancy. Verify boiler temperature at mark. Do not adjust. Record value. Confirm all exterior doors locked. Initial log. I wrote slowly and checked each line twice. I kept the layout simple. Charlie watched, chin in her hand, reading each step under her breath. It's clear, she said. I can read this at a glance. Good, I said. I wrote the second sheet for water emergencies. Water emergency. If you see flowing water, isolate floor at nearest maintenance box. Switch labeled water off. Keep residents away from spill area. Place towels if safe. Check panel. Note which light changed. Call Ferris. Do not attempt repair. If the leak is from a radiator valve left closed, open the valve slowly and observe. If light clears, wipe area and note in log. If light does not clear, keep it off until I arrive. I wrote heat, electrical, and vent emergency sheets next, line by line. No speculation. No extra text. While I wrote, Nifty burst from the hallway with a bucket and a stack of folded rags. She saw the sheets and brightened. Are those for the walls? She asked with excitement. Yes, I said. One for each maintenance box. One set at the lobby panel. One spare set for the basement. I'll get tape, she said, disappearing and returning with a roll as big as her hand. Husk wandered in from behind the bar, holding a mug. He glanced at the top sheet. You're making a book, he said, unimpressed but not mocking. Sheets, I said. Short and visible. He shrugged. Better than a book. Angel dust slid down the railing and landed on the bottom step, stretching. Morning class, he said. What are we learning today? How not to break the toilet. Step 1 is don't sit on the tank, Vaggie said without looking up. He smirked. You wound me. Alastair appeared near the piano, hands clasped loosely. He watched the writing with thin amusement. Rules and routines, he said lightly. How domesticated. Predictable, I said. Exactly, he said, still smiling. I finished the first 5 sheets and held them up to the light to confirm the ink had dried. I pressed each into a clear sleeve. I wrote a short index for the manual cover and slid the stack into a stiff folder labeled with a bold marker. Then I made 3 duplicate sets by hand so each floor would have its own copy at the maintenance box. My handwriting did not change between sets. Charlie and I carried the sheets to the second floor with the ladder. I taped the daily routine and water emergency sheets next to the maintenance box and slid a set of spares into a clip below it. I tapped the frame once to seat the tape. The lamination held. Charlie smiled at the little station. It looks official, she said, pleased. Official reduces hesitation, I said. We posted the 3rd floor sheets next. Nifty stood beside me and pressed each corner with her fingertip to make sure the tape stuck. They're neat, she said with satisfaction. The lines are straight. They will not peel, I said. We carried the last set to the basement. I mounted them on the masonry near the generator panel and anchored the edges with small nails. It would not come loose in the damp. I set the spare manual on a shelf I had cleared yesterday and tied a pencil to the binder with a length of twine. Back in the lobby, I posted the full set beside the main panel and added one more sheet on response roles with a simple table. Response roles. Water yellow, check room, call Ferris. Primary, Vaggie, secondary, Charlie. Water red, isolate floor, call Ferris. Primary, Vaggie. Heat yellow, check valve. Primary, Ferris, secondary, Charlie. Heat red, isolate heat loop, call Ferris. Primary, Ferris. Electrical yellow, reduce load. Primary, Husk. Electrical red, clear area, call Ferris. Primary, Ferris, secondary, Vaggie. Vent yellow, clean duct. Primary, Nifty. Door open, unexpected check door. Primary, Vaggie, secondary, Husk. I added one line at the bottom, if uncertain, call Ferris. Charlie read it and nodded. Everyone has a part, she said happily. That is the intent, I said. We began the first morning routine of the week trial together. I stood at the panel and handed Charlie the logbook. She called the sequence with clear voice and pressed the pen hard enough to darken the paper when she wrote the time. Doors all green. Water all green. Heat all green. Electrical all green. Vents all green. Boiler at mark, she said. I watched her posture while she did it. Shoulders level. Breathing calm. No rush. It looked right. Approved, I said. Thanks, she said, smiling. Angel Dust drifted over and leaned his arms on the counter. Want me to do the evening one, he offered with a grin. I'll make it look good. You will do it correctly, I said. He laughed. Obviously. Vaggie paced a short loop near the front doors and peered through the glass at the street. I'll check the alley and come back, she said. Proceed, I said. I set the timer Charlie had used yesterday for the next routine reminder. It buzzed quietly and then stopped. Charlie watched me set it. That thing always makes me jump, she said with a smile. It will keep us on time, I said. Once the morning routine was done, I walked the floors and checked each maintenance box for proper placement of the sheets. I tweaked a corner here and a position there so the headings were exactly level with the top edge of the box. I placed a stubby pencil on the screw ledge of each box for quick notes. I wrote pencil on a small label and stuck it above the pencil so no one would remove it for another task. Nifty tested each pencil to make sure it wrote. This one is dull, she announced at the third floor box. Sharpen it, I said. She produced a small sharpener from her apron as if she had been waiting to use it and cleaned the point to a fine tip. At midday, the first test came from normal use. The heat column threw a single yellow on the second floor. The label read 205 rad. I was halfway up the stairs when Charlie called from behind me. I've got it, she said with quick confidence. She ran ahead to the second floor and stopped at room 205. She opened the door with a key from her pocket and went straight to the radiator. Valve half closed, she called. I'm opening it now. Proceed, I said. She turned it slowly. The light at the panel shifted back to green. She looked over her shoulder at me with a pleased expression. That was easy. It will usually be easy, I said. She laughed lightly, comfortable with the result. She turned back to the radiator and adjusted the cover straight so it sat evenly on the brackets. I noted the instance in the log with time and the cause. I circled resident valve access and made a short mark to remind myself to add simple plastic guards later to prevent accidental closure. I drew a small diagram of the guard next to the note and wrote cut from pipe coupling. The second test came 10 minutes after Angel Dust started a hair dryer and a space heater at the same time in his bathroom. The electrical column ticked to yellow for West 2. Husk saw it first and scratched his cheek with a fingernail. "I'll get it," he said with no enthusiasm. He walked to the bottom of the stairs and shouted without raising his voice much. "Angel! Turn off one thing." "Which one?" Angel shouted back. "The one that makes the light yellow," Husk said. Angel laughed. "Fine. Hair stays, heater goes." The column returned to green. Husk returned to the bar and did not comment further. "I made a note, resident load exceeded single branch, responded to reduction, consider label on outlet with guidance." I cut a small piece of tape and wrote one device at a time in block letters. I walked upstairs and stuck it beside Angel's outlet. He watched me, amused, as I pressed the tape with my thumb. "You're cute when you're bossy," he said. "Do not exceed capacity," I said. Okay, he said, mischief softened by compliance. In the afternoon, the door row threw a single yellow for guest status 312. The door had not latched after Charlie left fresh towels. Vaggie walked up, pushed it until the click sounded, and returned. She noted the correction in the log with initials that were hard and neat. Between these small changes, we moved through the rooms again to stage final items for use. Charlie sorted a small box of basic toiletries into labeled baskets and placed one in each bathroom. She arranged them in the same order each time. She smiled when the roll looked straight on the shelf. Nifty wiped down the tops of door frames and checked for webs. She took satisfaction in empty corners. I moved between tasks, tightening screws, straightening covers, adjusting a hinge so a door did not swing open on its own. Alastair commented once near the piano, voice smooth. "You do adore your little lights," he said to Charlie with a soft laugh. "I like knowing," she said simply. "Knowledge can be very comforting," he replied, still amused. "It helps us do better," she said, not changing her tone. He inclined his head. "Of course," he said, satisfied to end it there. By late afternoon, I started the second phase of training. I stood at the lobby panel and called each person by name to run the routine and write the log in their own hand. I did not correct tone. I corrected order. "Angel," I said. He did it properly, reading the labels aloud. He smiled while he wrote but did not skip a step. "Husk," I said. He grunted and read slower but got each line right. He wrote the boiler temperature as a whole number and underlined it without being asked. It was a small show of ownership. "Nifty," I said. She bounced and then forced herself still. She read each light and wrote a tiny check mark next to each column name. Her handwriting was small and tidy. "Vaggie," I said. She was clean and quick. She initialed with a straight line and a triangle. She set the pen back exactly where she found it. "Charlie," I said. She smiled, read it all, and wrote the time and a short "all clear." She set the pen down gently, proud. I closed the log and set it on the shelf. "Good," I said. "Evening routine will be at the same time every day. Tomorrow we will do the morning routine 5 minutes earlier and the evening routine 5 minutes later. We will repeat that for 1 week to test variance." "Got it," Vaggie said. Charlie lifted the timer. "I'll set this for both," she said. "Set it for 5 minutes before the time," I said. "It will give you time to reach the panel." She pressed the button and adjusted it with care. She held it a moment after it buzzed to get used to the sound. She smiled when it stopped. We ate a simple meal around the bar. I did not eat. I stood and watched the panel while they spoke in quiet tones about small things. Angel talked about a new outfit. Nifty described a stain she had removed from a carpet. Husk made dry comments that made Angel roll his eyes. Charlie smiled through it all, happy with the sound of her group. When the timer buzzed for evening routine, Charlie made a small motion with her hand and walked to the panel, bringing everyone with her. She did the check with clear voice and wrote the numbers with calm hands. Vaggie took the pencil next and added a note about the alley being quiet. Husk wrote the boiler temperature. Nifty added vents clear in tiny script. I took the log, read it, and nodded. Approved, I said. Alastair glanced over once and spoke in a tone that stayed light. My, we do love a ritual. Process, I said. He laughed quietly and let it go. After the routine, I went upstairs with my toolkit and added plastic guards over the radiator valves in rooms where accidental closure would most likely occur. The guards were cut from thick pipe couplings and seated with 2 screws. They allowed deliberate turns but prevented brushes from fabric or careless elbows from shifting the valve. I tested each by bumping it with my hand. The valve did not move. Charlie followed me and watched as I worked. We should print small cards for the rooms, she said thoughtfully. Just a note about not adjusting valves and who to call if something looks wrong. Write them, I said. I will post them. She smiled. I'll make them simple. She did. She wrote in steady letters, need help with heat, water, or lights. Tell Charlie at the front desk. She added a smiley face and then scratched it out when she looked at me and laughed. Too much. Leave it off, I said. Right, she said, still smiling. We posted the cards in each room with tape that would not tear the paint. Nifty adjusted the corners until they were level. She stepped back and nodded each time, satisfied. As night came, which only meant the pattern of work shifted, we gathered again for a last glance at the panel. It did not change. The room felt quiet, not from emptiness but from the absence of small problems. The routines had been simple to do and took less than 3 minutes. The sheets stayed on the wall. The pencils were still there. Day 1 complete, I said. Charlie breathed out in relief she did not need to hide. It worked, she said. We will repeat, I said. Every day, she said. Every day, I agreed. The next morning of the trial began with a small test at the edge of the system. The vent column ticked to yellow for VENTB on the 3rd floor. Nifty appeared before I spoke. I saw it, she said, eyes bright. I'll fix it. Proceed, I said. She sprinted up the stairs with her brush and a cloth. 10 minutes later, the light returned to green. She came back down with a smudge on her cheek and a proud look. It was a paper wad in the duct, she reported. It is not there now. Good, I said. Note it. She wrote Vent B yellow, paper removed in tiny letters next to the time. She drew a small square beside it and colored it green. During the afternoon, the water column threw a yellow for East 3W. Charlie and Vaggie moved together without speaking. They found a sink with a slow drip at the compression fitting. Vaggie cut the water at the box. I tightened the fitting. They reopened the flow. The light returned to green. I wrote cause and fix in the log and circled check compression fittings weekly. Alastair walked past, glanced at the log, and chuckled. It reads like a diary, he said. It reads like work, I said. 2 sides of the same coin, he replied, then drifted away. Over the next hours, nothing else moved. We finished the small cards in the remaining rooms. Husk replaced a fuse in the kitchen under my direction and did not complain about the cramped access panel. Angel, after seeing the label on his outlet, did not try to run 2 high-draw devices at the same time again. He teased me but obeyed the limit. Vaggie made 2 perimeter checks and returned both times without comments beyond clear. When the evening routine arrived, Charlie did it with a steady hand. She did not skip a line. She wrote the time, marked boiler temperature, and smiled at me as if the act itself counted as progress. It did. After the check, I wrote an addendum for the manual. Weekly checks, Ferris. Radiator valve guards secure. Compression fittings on east and west lines tight. Outlet labels present in hydro rooms. Maintenance box switches functioning. Panel LEDs tested via test switch. I taped the sheet under the others and clicked the pen shut. Charlie touched the new sheet with her fingertips and smiled. You think of everything, she said, quietly pleased. I think of what can fail, I said. You fix it before it does, she replied, steady. Usually, I said. She laughed softly. We closed the day without alarms. The week trial would continue with the same rhythm. Morning checks, work, small corrections, evening checks, notes. I kept my log entries precise. Charlie kept her notes honest. Vaggie kept her patrols consistent. Husk kept the boiler watched and the fridge cold. Nifty kept the vents clear. Angel kept his jokes and followed the rules when they mattered. Alastair watched and smiled. The sheets did not curl. The tape did not peel. The pencils stayed sharp. The panel held its pattern. That was all. Chapter 9, Limited Opening. The panel in the lobby did not change overnight. Water pressure held across the second and third floors. Heat sat at the line I had set. Vent airflow stayed even. Electrical drill rose once around midnight when Angel Dust used the dryer again, then leveled. I wrote the numbers in the log and closed it. Charlie came down the stairs with her hair tied back and a stack of blank forms in her hands. She smiled when she saw me at the counter. Morning, she said happily. Day 3. Day 3, I said. Half-week trial continues. We can open a small set of rooms at noon. Her eyes lit with relief and eagerness. 3 rooms, she said quickly. 1 for Angel. 2 for any new residents who want to try it. 3 is acceptable, I said. We will monitor load, behavior, and panel response. She nodded firmly. I'll get the keys. Vaggie stepped from the front doors with her spear tucked close. She looked past us to the street, then up at the panel, then back to us. Anything overnight? She asked. Nothing, I said. Good, she said. She checked the door locks with a quick hand, then looked at Charlie. You're sure about opening a few rooms today? Yes, Charlie said, steady. We've tested. We have a plan. We can handle 3. Vaggie held her gaze, then nodded. All right. We do it our way. Quiet. No flyers. No crowds. Agreed, Charlie said. Husk slid a mug across the bar and eyed the forms. You're doing check-in again, he said, resigned. I'll help, Charlie said brightly. We'll keep it simple. Angel Dust slunk down the stairs with sunglasses on, humming. He lifted them to wink at Charlie. Tell me you got my room ready. The one with the good lighting. You're on the second floor, she said, teasing. 203. Fresh towels. He placed a hand on his chest and gave a small bow. Finally. I'm a real resident. Nifty bounced past with a rolled carpet under one arm and a bucket under the other. I vacuumed every corner. I found a button and a penny and a dead bug and I threw the bug away. Good, I said. Alastair appeared near the piano with quiet steps and the same steady smile. Such industry this morning, he said in a gentle tone. A grand little opening at last. A limited readiness test, I said. He chuckled. How practical. I lifted the log and tapped the schedule line. Morning routine, I said. Charlie stood straight at the panel and called each column. Doors green. Water green. Heat green. Electrical green. Vents green. Boiler at mark. Her voice was clear. She wrote the time and pressed the pen hard enough to mark the paper cleanly. Approved, I said. Vaggie circled the front of the lobby and scanned the street again. Alley looks quiet, she said. Someone was watching last night for a bit. They didn't stay. I reinforced door reads last night, I said. If any door opens unexpectedly, the panel will mark it. She nodded. I'll handle it if it happens. Charlie gathered the keys on a ring and set them neatly on the counter. She placed 3 cards beside them with room numbers and short notes in her clean handwriting, 203, 305, 307. She looked at me and smiled with measured excitement. We'll be careful. We will be methodical, I said. She took a breath and then let it out slowly. Okay. The morning moved smoothly. I made small adjustments to the 3rd floor radiator guards. Nifty wiped the stair railings until they were clean. Husk restocked the bar fridge. Angel tried his light bulbs, shook his head, and then nodded when he realized they were the warm kind he liked. At noon, Charlie stood at the doors with her shoulders set. Ready? She asked without looking away from the street. Ready, Vaggie said. I stood by the panel, toolkit on the desk, log open, pen uncapped. Husk leaned a hip on the bar and watched with a careful eye. Angel leaned both elbows on the counter and smirked at the doors like a stage was about to start. Alastair hummed one quiet line and then fell silent again. Charlie opened the door. The street air rolled in smoke, oil, and dust. Hazbin Hotel, she called out, steady and clear. Limited rooms available. Quiet residents only. No trouble. Help is provided. Her voice did not carry far, but it did not need to. 2 figures hanging back near the alley drew closer. One was a small imp with a nervous look and a jacket that hung off his frame like he had borrowed it. The other was a bat demon with patterned wings folded tight around her shoulders, eyes sharp but not hostile. They hesitated. Charlie smiled and beckoned. It's safe, she said calmly. We're trying something new. The imp shifted from foot to foot, then stepped inside with his hands held close. The bat demon followed with a wary look around the walls and doors. She flared her nostrils at the smell of cleaning solution and raised an eyebrow at the neat panel with all its green lights. Welcome, Charlie said gently. We're offering rooms to residents who want a place to stay. We have rules to keep everyone safe. Do you want to hear them? The imp swallowed and nodded. Yeah, he said, trying to sound casual and failing. Okay. The bat demon's eyes slid to Alastair, then back to Charlie. Rules, she said, clipped but interested. Simple rules, Charlie said kindly. No violence inside. No weapons drawn. No drugs. No clients. We help you find other options. We have heat, water, and clean rooms. We'll ask you to help keep shared spaces clean and to follow check-in and check-out times. The imp grimaced at the no clients part but then nodded again, not leaving. The bat demon's expression did not soften, but she did not leave either. Alastair smiled without comment. Vaggie watched the street and then closed the door with a firm hand. If you're staying, you come inside now, she said. No loitering in the doorway. They obeyed and stepped fully into the lobby. Husk slid a clipboard over. Names, he said flatly. The imp looked at the paper as if it might bite. Scrap, he said, looking unhappy to say it out loud. Scrap, Husk said, writing it. The bat demon said, Blair. Husk wrote it down. Payment is work in kind or supplies, he said. You break something, you tell us. You run, you don't come back. Charlie cut in gently. We'll help you if you need it, she said. We're not here to punish you. We just need everyone to work together. Blair's mouth twitched. Fine, she said. Scrap nodded too quickly. Fine. Angel Dust rested his chin on his hand and smiled at them. You'll like the showers, he said. Trust me. I watched the panel. All green. Charlie handed Blair the key to 305. Second door on the right after the stairs, she said gently. She handed Scrap the key to 307. End of the hall, left side. I added the names next to the room numbers in my log. I watched the guest status row. When 305 opened, its light turned yellow. When 305 closed, it returned to green. The same for 307, a few seconds later. No pressure drop. No electrical spike. Heat stayed even. Charlie walked with Blair up the stairs, talking softly. Vaggie followed a step behind them, spear low, eyes forward. Scrap looked back once at the lobby and then hurried up, clutching the spare socks Charlie had given him. Nifty had tucked a wrapped bar of soap into his hand when he wasn't looking. He noticed it halfway up the stairs and blinked like he had never been handed something clean before. Husk poured a drink and watched the panel with one eye. So far, so good, he said. Stay observant, I said. Angel Dust slid closer to the log and peered at the names. Scrap and Blair, he said. Cute. They are not decorations, I said. He grinned. Relax. I know. Alastair's attention lingered on the stairs, then returned to the lobby. How charming, he said casually. Guests. They will follow the rules, I said. He tipped his head without argument. If they don't, I imagine we will all hear about it, he replied. Before that, I said, tapping the panel. He laughed under his breath. I kept my eyes on the panel and my ears on the floor. Above us, doors opened and closed with clean clicks. Pipes hissed in controlled bursts. A vent changed pitch for half a second and then settled. A few minutes later, Charlie and Vaggie returned. Charlie's cheeks were flushed with useful movement. She smiled with quiet triumph. Both rooms are fine, she said. Blair checked the window. Scrap asked for extra blankets. I told him yes. Acceptable, I said. Vaggie leaned her spear against the counter and folded her arms. No weapons visible. No friends trailing them. Street is clear. Good, I said. Nifty peered up the stairs with bright eyes. I put a little jar of cotton swabs in the bathrooms. I hope they like them. She rocked on her heels. Good, I said. We maintain. Angel Dust glanced up the stairs and sighed dramatically. Okay, I'll move my stuff into 203. If anyone touches my spare wigs, I'll scream. Keep it down, Husk said. Angel snorted and strutted up the stairs with a box under one arm. The guest status light for 203 turned yellow as he opened the door and then green as it closed. The heat and water columns did not move. The electricity column did not flicker. We settled into observation. I stood with the log open and wrote small notations at set times. 12:13 Blair door status normal. 12:15 scrap water use stable. 12:18 Angel electrical draw minimal. I watched for spikes and drift. Nothing moved. After 20 minutes, the vent column ticked to yellow for VENTC. I looked at Nifty. She was already at the stairs. On it, she said cheerfully, and bolted up. I listened and heard her climb into the duct with her brush. 4 minutes later, the light went green again. She returned with her cheeks flushed and a smile. Loose dust from the corner, she reported. I fixed it. Good, I said. Log it. She wrote Vent C yellow, dust removed in tiny print and drew a small clean circle next to it. Husk slid a glass down the bar to no one and then took it back, drinking it himself. If this stays quiet, he said, I might believe in your little light show. It is not a show, I said. Yet, he said, smirking. I figured. At 1 o'clock, the water column for East 3W shifted to yellow. I pointed. Vaggie. I see it, she said. She moved up the stairs at a brisk pace. Charlie followed with a towel and a small bucket. I stood and listened to the line pressure hum. It dipped by 2 points and then rose. I counted 3 breaths. The light returned to green. They came back down. Scrap left the faucet on full, Charlie said in a tone without judgment. I showed him where the handle is. Good, I said, and wrote it in the log. Resident instruction provided. Vaggie leaned on the counter with one elbow. He looked embarrassed, she said. He will learn, I said. At 1:30, the electrical column flashed yellow for West 2 for half a second, then steadied. Angel yelled from upstairs, it's fine. Husk grunted. He's not wrong. I wrote hot tool fast draw and left it at that. We kept the pace. At 2, no changes. At 3, Blair opened 305, then closed it. At 3:15, 307's vent light ticked, and Nifty fixed it with a practiced speed. At 4, the boiler needle drooped by 1 mark and then returned when the heating cycle completed. I adjusted the regulator slightly so the cycle smoothed. The needle sat still. At 5, we did the evening routine as a group. Charlie called the lights. Vaggie checked the door row twice. Husk wrote the boiler temperature and underlined it again. Nifty drew a tiny check by vents clear. I signed the bottom and wrote limited occupancy stable. We did not celebrate. We maintained. After the check, I went to the second floor to inspect Angel's room. He had already placed outfits in a closet and set 2 pairs of shoes in a neat line, which surprised me. He glanced at me while he applied eyeliner in the bathroom mirror. Don't judge me, he said with a grin. I actually like things where I can find them. Do not tamper with the heater, I said. Yet, he said, amused. You did good, big guy. It's comfortable. I nodded and left. In the hall, Charlie waited by the stairwell with 2 extra blankets folded in her arms. For Scrap, she said softly. Proceed, I said. We carried them to 307. Charlie knocked. Scrap opened the door halfway, then let us in. He was barefoot and looked smaller without his jacket. He avoided eye contact at first, then looked up when he saw the blankets. Thanks, he said, quiet. You're welcome, Charlie said with warmth. You can ask us if you need anything. He nodded and took the blankets. He looked at the water glass on the table like it was a strange object. He pulled his jacket sleeve and then stopped and tucked it neatly over the chair back instead. He looked at the heater and then at me. This stays warm, he asked. Do not adjust the valve, I said. If you are cold, tell me. He blinked and nodded again. Okay. We left him to settle. In the hall, Charlie exhaled softly. He's trying, she said. He is quiet, I said. That's fine, she said. On the 3rd floor, Blair had opened her window and leaned out for a minute to smell the air. She closed it when she saw us and kept her face neutral. Room's fine, she said. Water's hot. Window sticks less than the ones I'm used to. Report if it sticks again, I said. She looked at my toolkit. I will, she said, and then added, almost begrudgingly, thanks. I inclined my head. Understood. We went back down. The panel was unchanged. At 6, Husk set out bowls and a plain meal. Blair came down and ate without speaking. Scrap came down and stood near the doorway until Charlie waved him in. He sat and ate fast, eyes on his bowl, but listened to the soft conversation around him. Angel flirted half-heartedly with a joke. Husk rolled his eyes and kept the food coming. Vaggie watched the doors between glances at the panel. Alastair smiled and observed the social flow with his usual small amusement. After they ate, Charlie gave Blair a small stack of clean clothes and a sewing kit. Blair took the kit and looked at it like she might actually use it. Scrap asked for a second bowl, then apologized without looking up. Husk grunted and gave it to him anyway. At 7, the door row blipped when someone tried the handle from the outside. I looked at the top row. FRONTR ticked yellow and then returned to green. Vaggie moved to the door and peered out. "Move along," she said through the glass with a flat look. The figure outside shrugged and left. Alastair chuckled under his breath. I wrote "front door tested, no entry in the log." At 8, we did the second evening routine for the day as a test. Charlie smiled at the timer when it buzzed and walked to the panel as if it belonged to her hands. Doors green. Water green. Heat green. Electrical green. Vents green. Guests 3, all closed, she said. She wrote the time and signed. I initialed. I lifted the manual from the shelf and added a small line to the index, limited occupancy procedures. I wrote the sheet directly on the counter in block lines. Limited occupancy procedures. Maximum initial rooms, 3. Assign rooms on second and third floors only. Provide keys, towels, clothing, and rules card. Confirm door status on panel after check-in. Shadow guests to rooms for initial instruction on valves and outlets. Monitor panel for first hour. Record all deviations. Evening routine done with guest status row included. I taped the sheet next to the response rolls. Charlie read it and nodded, satisfied. This helps, she said. We can repeat it tomorrow. Correct, I said. She looked at me and let a small smile build. You look pleased, she said quietly. I am satisfied with system performance, I said. Same thing, she said, and laughed under her breath. We kept to the routine. At 9, Blair brought her sewing kit to the couch and mended a torn sleeve without asking for attention. Scrap sat near the bottom of the stairs with a blanket around his shoulders like he could not decide if he was allowed to use a chair. Charlie waved him to a seat, and he obeyed slowly. Angel teased him once and then stopped when he saw the flinch. Husk watched and said nothing. At 10, the vent column ticked yellow again for VENTC. Nifty stood like a sprinter. I've got it, she said, already moving. Green returned in 3 minutes. She wrote cobweb in the log with a tiny underline. At 11, the panel did not move. The room quieted. The guests went to their rooms without incident. The door row showed 3 steady green lights for occupied rooms and green for the rest. Charlie watched the row for a while, then turned away with clear satisfaction. Before midnight, I walked the floors with my toolkit and my log. I checked each occupied room. I did not knock. I listened at the doors. Water movement. Heat cycle. Soft steps. No raised voices. No scraping. I adjusted a door closer that shut too fast on the 3rd floor and added oil to a hinge on the 2nd. I returned to the lobby and wrote the time. Charlie leaned on the counter with her head tilted and a smile she did not restrain. Thank you, she said simply. You will call me if any light changes, I said. I will, she said. I promise. Vaggie set her spear near the wall and stretched her arms up until her back cracked. I'll watch the doors, she said. Get your notes done. I lifted the log, flipped to a clean page, and wrote a simple summary. Limited occupancy opened at 12 o'clock. No major deviations. Minor instruction events resolved. Vent cleaning twice. Electrical momentary. Front door test. System stable. I closed the log and placed it on the shelf. We ended the day the same as we had started it, with simple checks that kept the building in line. The trials would continue for the rest of the week. The rooms would stay open if nothing broke. The panel showed a complete grid of green lights. The hotel held steady. I stood in the lobby for a minute longer and watched the row that mattered now, the guests. 203, 305, 307. All closed. All green. I let that sink into my chest as a small, controlled result. Then I picked up my toolkit, checked the chairs for wobble, and wrote 3 small numbers in the margin of my maintenance book for tomorrow's tasks. The hotel did not require adjustment tonight. I left the panel to its work and walked the perimeter one last time. Chapter 10, Codes and Drills. The lobby panel held its steady pattern when I checked it at first light. Door row showed 4 greens. Water, heat, electrical, vents stayed stable. Boiler at the mark. I wrote the numbers in the log and drew a small box in the margin with today's tasks inside it. I printed each word clearly, enunciator. Codes. Drills. Charlie walked downstairs with her ribbon a little crooked and a stack of blank cards in her hands. She smiled when she saw me writing. "Good morning," she said happily. "We're doing the little text display today." "Yes," I said. "A simple enunciator tied to the existing panel. It will show short codes so response decisions are faster. You will read the letters and know which line without checking the legend." She set the cards on the counter and leaned in, interested. "I love that. What will the codes look like?" I reached for the grease pencil and wrote 3 samples on a scrap of cardboard. E3W drip, I said. That is east 3rd floor water minor leak. W2L means west 2nd floor electrical load. Vent B dust is obvious. Charlie grinned. "It'll even say dust." "It will print what I feed it," I said. Vaggie came from the front door, giving the street one last look. She studied the cardboard with a short nod. "This makes sense. Fewer mistakes." "Correct," I said. "We will drill response after installation. Controlled tests only." "Good," she said. Husk lifted his head from the bar and squinted at the cardboard. "You're making the lights talk." "Text only," I said. "No sound." "Thank God," he said, and took a careful sip from his mug. Angel dust slid down the banister and landed with one hand out for balance. He read the samples and smirked. "Oh look, now I'll know exactly what I broke." "Preferably before you break it," Vaggie said, dry. He winked. "No promises." Nifty popped her head out from the hallway with a duster in hand and eyes bright. "Do you need labels? I can make cute little labels." "Clean labels. Not cute. Just neat." "Later," I said. "First the device." Alastair came into view near the piano with his hands folded behind his back, smile steady. "A new toy," he said lightly. "How industrious." "A functional addition," I said. He nodded. "Naturally." I laid the components out in a clean row on the reception desk, 2 small 7-segment displays I had salvaged from broken clocks, a row of indicator diodes for separators, a tiny matrix board with a patched control unit extracted from a dead radio, and a scavenged ribbon cable with 8 intact lines. I set 2 small toggle switches beside the board and a thin wire-wrapped transformer to provide isolated low-voltage power from the panel bus. The indicator window was a shallow metal case I had cut from a gutted intercom. Charlie watched with clear interest. "You built this from scraps," she said softly. "I built it from available material," I said. "It will display 4 characters at a time." Enough for wing, floor, system code, and short cause. I will add a second stage to cycle longer messages if needed. She nodded, enjoying the detail. I took the back off the lobby panel and mounted the annunciator case above it. 2 screws bit into the wood. I ran the ribbon cable through a drilled hole and attached it to the board. I soldered each line slowly, testing continuity with a meter after every connection. I brought low voltage power to the small transformer and wired it to the board's input with a fuse in line. The fuse would blow before the device could damage the panel. Vaggie stood nearby, arms folded, posture alert. She kept one eye on the door and the other on my hands. She did not fidget. She listened to the sounds behind me and turned her head when someone walked by the glass. "Street is boring today," she said. "That is preferred," I said. Husk set a clean towel by my elbow without comment. I used it to wipe resin from my fingers and placed it neatly folded beside the tools. He went back to the bar and did not say anything else. Angel whistled softly as he leaned on the desk. "Can you make it say Angel stop when I touch something?" "I will put a label on your outlet," I said. He laughed. Nifty pulled a chair over and stood on it to watch the display slot. Her hands rubbed together with leftover dust and she held herself still with visible effort. "I won't touch it," she said quickly. "Good," I said. When the wiring was complete, I connected the annunciator input to the panel's logic lines. I set the first toggle switch to enable text only when a state changed from green to yellow or red. The second toggle would allow manual test messages so we could drill without real faults. I labeled both in block letters. I mounted the indicator cover with the narrow window. The displays lit faintly as power reached them, then rested dark. Charlie leaned forward. "It's on," she said in a quiet voice. "It is in standby," I said. I cut a thin strip of cardboard and printed a short code key in clean characters, then taped it above the panel. Codes: E equals east, W equals west, B equals basement, L equals lobby, K equals kitchen. 1/2/3 equals floor number. W equals water, H equals heat, E equals electrical, V equals vent, D equals door. Drip equals leak, press equals pressure, load equals electrical draw, dust equals vent block, open equals door open. I stepped back so Charlie and Vaggie could read it. Charlie smiled. Vaggie nodded. "Clear," she said. "Begin test," I said. I flicked the manual test toggle and fed the first code. The display flickered and printed E3W. I pressed the advance button and the separator lit. I pressed cause and it printed drip for 3 seconds, then cleared. The panel lights stayed green. The text annunciator returned to idle. Charlie breathed a pleased sound. "It reads so clean." "Again," I said. I pressed W2E then load. The words appeared crisp in the small window, bright enough to read from across the room. "Good," Vaggie said. Her tone stayed even, but the approval was clear. I set the device to live mode and tapped the panel's test switch for second floor water. The corresponding light went yellow. The annunciator flashed E2W and then press for 3 seconds. Charlie's face lit up. She touched the code key with her fingertip and looked at me. "This is perfect," she said. I reset the test switch. The annunciator went dark. I set the test toggle to manual and looked at Vaggie. "Now drills," I said. "You will respond to staged codes without my instruction. I will observe and correct timing." "Ready," she said. I pressed the sequence for a vent block on the 3rd floor. E3V dust appeared. The vents column stayed green since I had not triggered a real sensor. This was a code-only exercise. "Vent yellow," Vaggie said, calm. "Nifty." "I see it," Nifty said, eager. She grabbed her brush. "3rd floor," East Hall. She ran up the stairs. I clicked my stopwatch. 10 seconds later, I heard the vent cover come off in a clean motion. 20 seconds later, she called, "Clear," and replaced the cover. She came down smiling and slightly out of breath. "The code makes it faster," she said, proud. "Good," I said, and wrote the time in the log. Nifty drill 1, 30 seconds. Acceptable. Nifty preened and then wiped the counter with a cloth to give her hands something to do. "Again?" she asked hopefully. "Later," I said. "Okay," she said cheerfully. I pressed W2E drip. The annunciator showed the code. The water column stayed green. Vaggie moved at once to the second floor with a towel and the small bucket. Charlie followed with the log. They entered a random room and checked the sink and radiator. They practiced isolating the floor at the maintenance box and re-enabling it. I wrote times. I watched their form. They returned in under a minute and noted their steps. "Good," I said. "You will stick to the response roles. If the code is heat red, you will isolate the loop and call me. If it is electrical red, you will keep people away from outlets. If it is door open, you will check the door. You will not engage anyone unless they threaten the lobby." "Clear." "Clear," Vaggie said. "Clear," Charlie said. Husk scratched the back of his neck and frowned at the code key. "What about the bar fridge? You gonna give it a code?" "K fridge," I said. "If the temperature sensor crosses the line, the annunciator will show KE load for the compressor or KFR temp for the cabinet." He huffed, pleased despite himself. "Fine." Angel leaned one hip on the counter. "Can mine say Angel hair so I know it's about me?" "Your outlet will not get a custom code," I said. "You will read the column." He grinned. "Worth a shot." Alastair chuckled lightly. "He does love attention," he said. "As do you, my dear panel." I ignored that. I ran 3 more drills. B1W drip, LD open, W3H press. Each time, Vaggie moved with clean purpose, Charlie shadowed with notes, Nifty reacted quickly if vents were involved, and Husk watched the electrical column and pointed once when I flashed W2E load as a test. He called up to Angel, one device, and the code cleared. "Response times are acceptable," I said. Charlie tapped the code key, thinking. "Can we add one for the kitchen sink?" she asked. "It tends to clog when Angel dumps stuff." Angel held up his hands. "I would never." Husk shot him a flat look. "You would always." I wrote small letters on the key. "KW drain," I said. "Kitchen water drain. If it sticks, the annunciator will tell you." Charlie tried to hold back a smile and failed.